Thank you all for coming. And I know I don't look like Taylor Wilhauer because I'm Colleen Valley. I'm the vice chair. Thank you all for coming. And forgive me if I get things a little bit messed up because this is my first time running a meeting at the school board. The first item on the agenda is our consent agenda. And so do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion. Yeah.
Second.
And do any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition say nay. Thank you. So now we're on to reports and discussion. And this is the time that we have for our student representatives. There's no one. Do we have anybody online from Kennedy? They did send a written. Okay. So there is a report that we'll have read into the minute or posted into the minutes. There they are. Yay. So we'll just hold up for just a second for Leland. Hi, Leland. Take your time and get settled, but would you like us to do the CGHS reports and give you a little time to settle in, or do you want to just go for it?
I printed it for him. Sometime.
Okay, you got it. So now we have Cottage Grove High School reports and Laura and Victor. Yes, go for it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So during spring break, a group of 18 students, including myself, we went to Europe through World Strides, which is a travel educational travel program. And we went with Miss Schaefer from the high school, which was really fun. It was a group of French students and German students, and we went to France, Switzerland, and Germany. And it was really awesome. I had a blast. We got to learn so much. I feel like a whole new person after going. And it was really enriching, and we all just really enjoyed our time. And also, we have our student council elections for all student body and student representatives at the high school at the end of this month. And here's Victor.
Hi, I'm Victor. So recently, if some of you have heard, we are currently starting our Lion Pride pageant, and that includes the pageant every year the high school runs is something that we as a community can come together and raise money for children in the NICU through Children's Miracle Network. And so during this month, we are currently having events that can really bring all of us together and raise money. Not too long ago, we had our El Tapatio night, in which people were able to attend El Tapatio and have the contestants of the Lion Pride do some anything really. And if you want to see them do a backflip, you could pay them to do a backflip. And it was really fun to see everyone enjoy it. And then coming up on the 10th at the high school, we will be having our basketball game in which CGHS staff members and the Lion Pride contestants will go against each other, which seems pretty fun. Mr. Harrington, a really tall guy, will be really fun to see throwing a basketball around with some 17 or 18-year-old. Also at the basketball game, there will be an auction to bid on desserts made by the Lion Pride contestants to raise even more money for children in the NICU. And then on the 13th of April, we will be having the Lion Pride car wash, which will allow people to come and bring their car. And if you feel a bit lazy and don't want to wash the car, you can have them clean it. Really, it's just another way for us to raise more money and just to really include the whole community. And then the 19th of April will be the big day of the Lion Pride pageant. It will be at 7:30. At 7:30, and it'll basically be the big show. We'll be having skits, we'll be having dancing, anything you can think of. It's going to be like America's Greatest Talent there, I tell you that much. And then our spring sports are starting right now, and we'll get to that with Hayes. Hayes knows a lot more. He's our sport guy right now. And then also leadership took about 18 or 20 students to the Lincoln Middle School to help really the eighth graders get to know what life will be like at high school. So answering some questions, giving advice, really just building that connection of, it's not this big, scary school. It's really just, it's like middle school, except, older in a way, But really, it just helped the kids get comfortable and knowing that they have another big chapter in their life that they're going to go into and that that they're ready for it. And then really, I think we have Hayes, who will be explaining more on sports and FBLA.
Okay, so the track and field team has had a lot of opportunities to compete recently. Most recently, this last Saturday, it was at Marshfield High School for the Prefontaine Classic. There were a total of 26 teams there, of which the collective boys and girls teams for Cottage Grove placed fifth. There were teams from all across Oregon, even some down in California. So I'd say we did pretty well. And currently, our team, some 2/3 of the team-ish are at Marist right now competing against a bunch of different teams in the league. And we have a meet coming up on Saturday in Philomath. It's a relay meet. Baseball and softball. Both teams have started league play. They are 2 games in, sadly. They have lost both of them, but they have a game tomorrow against North Bend at home. So if you want to go watch, feel free. It should be fun. And FBLA. We just got back from our state conference in Portland, which was last Thursday and Friday. We left before awards were handed out, so we don't know how everybody did, but we had 24 eligible people who went to the conference, and one of which is coming back as a state champion. So we will see how everybody does and see who places for nationals.
Can you tell us what FBLA stands for?
FBLA stands for Future Business Leaders of America. So it's a business club. Business club.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Laura and Victor. And are you ready to go?
What happened recently? Students took a field trip to the Salem Wood Mills and Chemekta Community College. They also took a field trip to the Umpqua Community College and checked out their mechanics, welding, dental, and police career options. We held first aid and infant CPR classes with our awesome math teacher, David Heritage. For students that are entering early childhood education internships this term, school-wide PBIS field trips to Defy Trampoline Park. That was fun. Students picked the theme for this year's prom, which will be casino night. The event will have games, prizes, food, drinks, and music. Upcoming events are rock climbing field trip to Elevate with David Heritage. Proxy Falls field trip going to hike the falls, and OMSI and Oregon Zoo field trip. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you, Leland. And now we have the OSEA report.
So you're gonna move up.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Rogers. I'm the president of the OSEA Chapter 32, and I am a behavior support specialist at Bohemia Elementary. I've been with the district 7 years. And before we get started on our presentation for you on our tentative agreement for our contract, we would like to say that this year was amazing. The collaboration, the respect, the teamwork, having Tammy come and ask to be a part of it really showed us for the first time in a long time as classified that we are respected, we are heard, we feel it now. And it was an amazing process. And we want to thank Brian, Rita, Jesse, Celia, Emily, probably forgetting someone, but it was amazing teamwork. Our team was amazing. And we just wanted to share that before we put this up here because we're really proud of the work that we did together. And it really felt together. And it's been that way in everything else that we've worked on, not just the contract, the communication, the respect. It's really, we're putting our money where our mouth is now, working together, and that really feels human. Turn it over to you, Rita.
Well, I would just echo everything. It's a lot to work with. And, we started back in August. Meeting with, I think it was just that great bonding time and it's been a plus. Collaboration and camaraderie. We just leave that. You don't have to. Walk out of parking and say. This was. A resident. I just, everybody can.
Wouldn't miss it for the world.
So we are going to, just, go through, the slides this afternoon and share with you, each article and, some briefly because there's not much to be done in my. And things like that, lots of things in there, and, share information about the big pieces. And, I can find questions if you have questions. So, first of all,
Thank you, Steve. All right, and for the South Main School District, we had Jesse Baber, who is the Baber, excuse me, Jesse. I just turned the mic on too, so you got that. His knowledge of the contract has been instrumental and so helpful as a new person coming in. SLEA Gowing was with us as our financial person, and Tammy, thank you so much for joining our team on the representing the school board. Brian McCaslin, expertise there that just goes back so many years, and Emily Rin Giroux, again, expert knowledge and information, just that institutional knowledge was so valuable and appreciated, and a great team, just a great team.
And of course, you.
Oh.
Okay, I don't feel bad now. You forgot yourself.
Sorry. Oh, and just again, that we are well pleased with the work that we did, that we completed. And as a team, we feel that we have come to agreement for a contract for 24-27 that is both good for the district and it's good for our employees. And I feel that it's respectful and acknowledges the hard work that our classified employees undertake, and they're so very much appreciated. I think that the process, as I said earlier, it was very smooth, and it helped us to build relationships, strengthened relationships and trust amongst all team members, and spreading out into our district. So as a district team, we're very thankful for the work and the camaraderie that we established. All right. So we're going to jump right in with Article 6. There was a little clarification. Article 6 is on the work week and hours worked. If you are looking at the contract, the page number is there, and you'll get this presentation at the end, so you'll have it to refer to. So yeah, Article 6A, rest periods is the specific area that we touched in this. And that was just to clarify breaks and rest period. And when that comes in the workday. And we also talked about split shifts, because we have folks who are driving students around that work split shifts. And so the definition of a split shift as far as breaks go is if there's more than an hour or 60 minutes of a break, that begins a new break, and that's the void regulation. So that's one thing we worked on there.
And just to clarify, we also cleaned it up to make sure that it went with BOLI law, because our contract wasn't real clear. It was a little vague, and we have to make sure that we are following the law.
No, we do not. We do not, we just
go.
Article 9, job postings, vacancies, promotions, and voluntary transfer. We had one item in 9A on job postings. And we had old language that does not match up with current law on limitations for classified employees who come in new to us, only being able to bring 4 years of experience. So we've removed that, and we are putting, still working on our pay equity matrix. And once we have that in place or finished, we'll work on that through CMC, and that will become a part of this as well. And then on promotion, this was a financial topic, and currently in our current contract, we have 2.4 or 2.5 in some cases % difference between each step on our contract, on our pay scale. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. And the ask was that what we wound up with was changing that to 3%, starting with 2 through 10. So that was an increase that our employees will realize in this next year.
Currently, under promotion in our contract, there is no percentage listed in the current contract.
We just
And
had the difference.
We just wanted to clarify that it be at least the 3% that we PA'd on for what happens between steps 2 through 10. So they align together when someone does receive a promotion.
So our old scale was just, that was the difference between steps, just. Okay, so reclassification. This one has to do with the district and association reviewing language for reclassification of positions. In this case, if it's a new position coming in, we say, okay, we have this job description that we just wanted to outline in particular that the association has the right to bargain on the rates for that position. It has always been the case, but we just wanted to have it be very, very clear because it's something that's easy to look at. Okay. And then the last thing on the financials, Article 13, which is the wage schedule, 13A wage schedule. So the increase of the COLA, the cost of living increase over the next 3 years, beginning with 24-25. And this is for all steps on the pay schedule, steps 1 through 10, would be a 4% increase. Second year of the contract, a 4% increase. And the third year is a 3.5% increase. And the pay scale the salary schedule that you received reflects this, and it reflects the 3% up in Article 9. So in Article 13, we just wanted to clarify and match the language on paydays with our other bargaining agreement. And so we agreed upon saying the payments will be made no later than the 25th of each month. And to also specify at the end of the year that the balance of the contract, the 3 payments, 2 payments, what each person would have at the end will be made by 1 check or deposit no later than June 25th. And the Article 13H is a bilingual pay differential. This was an MOA that had been agreed upon previously, and that language was wrapped into the contract. You can read the specifics of it in the contract that you have right around page 28. And what it provides is a 50 cents per hour additional pay under certain conditions that are all laid out in the contract for people who qualify for that. Article 14 on insurance. First on full-time employees, we specified that the health savings account it is $1,250 contributions will be deposited no later than October 1st, released to go into to our employees. Additionally, we added the Kaiser plans. This was an MOA that was from this school year, 23-24. And so we put the plans in and what percent of the premium would be need to be paid by the employee. And then on same article for Part B, part-time employees, there was just some cleanup language around the spelling of 15. And I think we're going to kind of miss that word. It was in there. Yeah. And also there was another clerical talking about the hours worked per week. It was 37.5, which was incorrect. The actual number is 36.25 to prorate benefits. And so we cleaned that up. And the summer insurance contribution, we just did a little cleanup there too and added the word insurance to the sentence so that was more clear. Article 15 on holidays, there were two pieces. One, just general language cleanup to add work, which seems like a small word, but in that paragraph, it's a big word. To make it two separate words, work day, not work day. When you're talking about working the day before a holiday or the work day before the holiday, and whether you or not you qualify for that holiday, it makes a big difference. And then per an MOA from previous, Juneteenth was added as well into that language for those who qualify for it. Okay, in Article 18, this is illness leave, paid leave. Section G, perfect attendance. Really, the only change to that was to make that Section H. And then we made Section G bereavement leave. And this is a leave that we thought that we wanted and needed to offer to our classified employees. Other association has this leave, and it just seemed like the equitable thing to do. And so in the contract, employees are allowed up to 5 paid days per year. And they can use those within a 2-week window of a death of an immediate family member, which is the definition of that is down below, and it's also contained within the contract. So that's real clear. There is an exception. For example, if a funeral is set outside of that 2-week window, then they can that time can still be used for that funeral and travel around that whatever's needed there. Anything to add on that one? Okay, sounds great. Paid leave, Oregon. This Article 19B is a new section. It used to just be 19, now 19A and B. This was added to outline the paid leave Oregon and the process for notification to the district, the financial stipulations around this for our employees. And what we outlined in this was including the allowable use of paid leave. We cannot require that as an employer, but our employees can request it. And also in our contract, the limits that people could use their paid leave to backfill or paid Oregon paid leave is up to 100% and not over. So. Jury service. Going too fast. I feel like I'm going back. No, that's great. Okay. Article 21, court appearance and jury duty. So we changed this language to say that employees, first, they won't lose pay for jury service. Employees will not collect pay for jury service, but may collect the mileage payment from the court. So we have our employees going to jury service and they cut them this check and they put the pay on it, which they can't keep because they paid, and they put their mileage on it. And so they're bringing us in an $11 check. And we say, well, you're going to have to cash that because we can't. And then they bring it to us and we give them the dollar and we keep the 10. It's like, it's just not worth it. I guess we're not the only district that has gone that way on this, but just a little thing. Okay, and Article 24, this is the about the probationary period for classified employees. And this is around classified probationary employees. And it's around ORS 332544. And basically what we put in addition to what was already in there for probationary employees is it will follow the law. And that law is still changing and probably will be for a couple of sessions more. So we said, we'll follow the law.
We just had to go through and do the date changes, obviously, to each page and the header for the contract to change the dates to read 2024 to 2027 as opposed to 21-24. And we went in and cleaned that up on all of those pages. We had to change the names, of course, of the officers and the district personnel that will be signing the contract once it is hopefully voted in. So those changes were cleaned up and you'll see those in red on the copy that you received.
And then Article in 27, we just played a switch. Contract maintenance committee language was in 27 that we felt would best fit under 29, which is titled contract maintenance committee. So that was just a flip. So those are the changes that we have. And we go back one. Just again, a thank you to our great OSEA, our association members, and the bargaining team. It was a really good experience. And with that,
What is the cost of the increasing wages for you?
we're not for you. Thank you, Celia. Can tell you this, it's within our budget. We made sure of that.
We did make sure that what we budgeted for bargaining was going to fit in with the budget that we're going to put forth in a couple weeks. And I mean, I think you'll be pleased with both. I mean, we were able to do both, stay within a budget that's not affecting our budget for next year, while at the same time making some substantial changes that I think were necessary. So
So for the first year, the estimate including benefits is 350,000. Now that I've unmuted the mic.
The estimate for the first year is, including salary and benefits, is $354,000. Thank you very much, Celia. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you very much.
Team.
We
Well, I think
appreciate it.
bargaining is very.
It was absolutely wonderful. It was, like I said, I can't express enough.
Yeah.
Having a school board member express interest in sitting in to hear how things would go was like, at first, a little unnerving, but then it was really a great experience. I mean, it was nice for Tammy to be able to hear both sides, and it was collaborative. I think Tammy would agree that it was always, teamwork on both sides. And the communication was always very well represented from both sides. Like, this is why we think this. There was great explanation. It wasn't just a no or yes. There were reasoning behind it, and the reasons were like hard to argue with. I mean, it was very, very nice, very
was very
mutually
good to
thought out,
hear.
and yeah.
all of the sides and even the audience that you folks had, the other members that of your union that came and watched. Chatting with them, it was invaluable just to hear what they had to say about things too. Just their perspective is just, how can you argue with some of that stuff, you know?
Well, that's why
Yeah.
we're here, is for, not
Yeah.
just for us, for all of them. We represent the entire classified, and having them here to say to a school board member and to the district and to us that, wow, that was amazing, means that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And, you know, I don't need anyone to ring my bell, but hearing that we're doing it right and that people are appreciative. You know, it's a big job representing 200 and some odd people when you only know maybe 30 of those people personally. So having people here at the bargaining that I had never met before tell our team, wow, that was amazing, means that we're doing something right. And, you know, we love what we do and we love to represent them, and we're honored that they elected us to do so.
Well,
So,
and I think one of the things that they're not giving themselves credit for, our wonderful team of the union there. The thing that I just really, I don't think I even thought about is how many different types of positions they're representing. So time and again, something would come up and they would talk about, how is this going to affect the bus driver? How would it affect someone in the kitchen? How would it affect the person in a library? There's so many different implications for each change, and they were on top of all of it. So kudos to you folks for
Thank you.
being
Appreciate
good
you hearing that.
representatives.
That means
of
a lot.
your-
Means a lot, Tammy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
So for over 20 years, we've had collaborative bargaining with school board members, part of the team. And I don't know what happened in the last couple of years, but definitely it works better when you're collaborative with a board member. So I'm glad we've gone back to that. And we will with certified.
That is our intention. Yes, it takes two parties to agree to that.
Yeah.
And we've talked just briefly about that,
Yeah.
but including a board member and doing things collaboratively is always,
Absolutely.
in my experience as well, is always a better process.
Absolutely. And
Thank you.
we second that. I mean, you can't have mutual respect and collaboration if every players on the team aren't represented.
Right, yeah.
So we appreciated it, and Tammy was wonderful. So thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wait. Oh.
So since we're on the topic of the new contract, I'm going to move the approval up to now from the business section. So all those who would like to approve the contract, please say aye. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I get a motion?
I would move that we accept the contract for the new contract for that we bargained, 24th to 27.
Second.
Are there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 We got an aye there. Any opposed? And so the motion carries. Yay. Thank you all so much for your hard work. We really appreciate it. And then the next item on the agenda is the SLEA representative report from Emily Quindry. Hi, Emily.
Can we sign that right now just before they leave? That be okay?
Sure.
Emily, would that be?
Would that be okay with you?
You can still- you can stay.
You don't want to have to make your run all over the place.
Yeah, let's go ahead. I'll get it. I'm not in the mood, I'm not in the mood. Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
You know, it's good. See what's going on.
Right?
Yeah, good.
It's all official. Thank you all again. Whenever you're ready, Emily. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Emily Quindry from the South Lane Education Association. I'm the current president until end of June of this year. Since the last board meeting, we sent out a survey to all of our members of just as a follow-up about payroll issues and benefit issues to see, just to kind of parse out if we just had a few people that were really vocal about errors or if it was more widespread still. And we gave folks about 5 days to respond and then we cut it off. We had 31 respondents. Of those, 87% reported that they had payroll or benefit errors that needed correction. Of that percentage, 52% responded that their problem is solved or in process of being solved. 37% are unsure if their issue is resolved, and 11% said their issue is not resolved. So that's roughly 50-50 on that. And then 67% reported that the communications from payroll and HR were unclear. And 70% felt disrespected when reporting and needing to work through corrections. And so that was why I wanted to share that information with the board and the district. There's some cool graphs, but I'll just put those, I'll give those to Tanya to add to the notes. And then another topic, just to let the board know or remind the board, a few months ago, I read from the School Board Association Code of Ethics. And we've just been hearing a lot of things and seeing things out in the community that leads us to believe that there may be a member of the school board in violation of some of the codes. For instance, announcing conflicts of interest before board actions, being open and fair and honest with no hidden agenda, refusing to use board membership for personal or family gain or prestige, understanding the chain of command and referring problems or complaints to the proper administrative office, recognizing that decisions are made by a majority vote and should be supported by all board members, and understanding that the board sets the standards for the district through board policy and board members do not manage the district on a day-to-day basis. We do have a lot of members pretty fired up, and so we may move to filing complaints with the OSBA. And the last topic for tonight is major behavior incidents. The past month has had an unfortunate number of Cottage Grove families, students, and staff interacting with local law enforcement. It's more important than ever to follow best practices in these situations. Privacy and dignity are important for victims of aggression. However, there have been group presentations here before the board about restorative justice and various types of practices and anti-bullying programs, other methods of healthy problem solving within the district. Of course, the long-term goal for these is that these communication practices spread into family life and heal the entire community over time. And so
periods like this in our community is the time to be using those. 2 incidents took place at the middle school and staff were unclear on their roles post-incident and after police were on the scene. Administrators were not available in all situations. Staff are not informed about incidents on campus or are informed in very vague language. Students are told not to discuss incidents, even if they may have been traumatized by them. Most information teachers have is from student rumors and gossip circulating. So we have all this awesome youth truth data that was collected from students and parents. And there's definitely a lot of things that people specified around these kind of issues and bullying and safety and respectful treatment of each other. So I really want to urge the administration and the board to use that youth truth data to make improvements. Our questions are how are these practices recently put in practice, or the responses to the recent incidents? How are they improving school climate at each building? How does this improve safety for students, especially those who feel vulnerable? How many people will get hurt before building and district leadership take positive action steps? How many times does our district have to end up on the local paper or in the regional news because of negative publicity? Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And before we move to public comment, I'd like to read a statement. So thank you for taking the time to attend the meeting tonight. For clarity, I'd like to remind those in attendance that this is a board meeting that is held in public according to Oregon Public Meeting Law, which is not the same as a meeting with the public. As such, the board does not engage with audience members, which can feel awkward at times, but is the process prescribed in the law. The board is not required to set time aside in order to hear comments from members of the public. The board wishes to hear from community members. So there will be a public comment period following my statement. Speakers who wish to address the board must sign up before the meeting using the sign-up sheet outside the boardroom or by contacting the district office. The board chair will recognize each speaker for a period of 3 minutes. We ask that speakers be seated at the designated table, clearly identify themselves, and state whether they reside within the district before speaking. If multiple speakers are presenting on the same topic, please select one person to represent the group. Please note that the board is not allowed to hear comments about any individual or comments deemed to be in violation of policy AC, non-discrimination. If a person begins to comment about either of these protected areas, the board chair will ask them to stop, and they must end their comments at that time. Furthermore, policy KL, public complaint states, the board will not hear personal complaints concerning school personnel, nor against any person connected with the school system. To do so would expose the board to a charge of being party to slander and would prejudice any necessity to act as the final review of administrative recommendations regarding the matter. Thank you. So first up for public comment is Ben Robbins. Hi, Ben. Thank you for coming.
Well, kind of a long little field here, so I got it backed out, so I don't lose my.
Oh, okay. So could you let us know if you there you go. Thank you. Thanks, Sheila. Would you let us know if you reside in the district?
Yeah, my
And
name
your
is Ben
name.
Robbins, live out by Cottage Grove Lake. I've been coach around here, involved in multiple sports, involved, in what's going on with the kids. I'm a parent of 2 kids currently attending South Lane School District, 8th grader and 4th grader. We're no stranger to incidents of bullying and harassment with both our boys. It started at Harrison Elementary with our oldest son. He was constantly picked on and bullied there. A run around with the South Lane School District began there. Multiple meetings with teachers and aides. We specifically requested meetings with the principal and were told no. We weren't getting anywhere with them and the bullying got worse. Eventually, we moved our son to London Elementary, Once he was there, COVID shut the school down, and that's been the only break from bullying that he's had. When class came back in person, the bullying came right back with a vengeance. My son received death threats on the bus. Another student said he was going to shoot up and blow up our house. School told us they couldn't contact the parents, so they couldn't suspend him or remove him from the bus because that was his only way home, and it might be a good idea for us to pick up our son and take him off the bus. So their solution was to inconvenience the parents of the kids that's doing the right stuff and completely ignore what the bully's doing. This bullying continued until the student moved on to the high school. This is Brian's first year at Lincoln, and it's been awful. March 4th, he was attacked by another student. Student had a friend record him sucker punching my son and running away down the hallway from it like a coward. He then posted it on YouTube. Lincoln suspended him for 2 days. The school was unaware of the video and said that it made it cyberbullying issue and that it took it to a whole new level and would be much more serious. Nothing ever changed. It was a premeditated attack on my son, and the bully received a 2-day vacation to play Fortnite. This kid's the biggest instigator in the school and gets a 2-day vacation after multiple incidents. Before the incident, he was supposed to be placed on a delayed release from passing times to prevent him from being in the hallway with other students. The school did not enforce their own punishments on this kid. If they would have, my son never would have been attacked. Same kids are in trouble multiple times and allowed to continue tormenting other students while South Lane does nothing. The next week, an incident occurred resulting in the sexual assault of another student. 2 days later, another fight resulted in paramedics being called. Lincoln's out of control. There's no supervision between classes, and there absolutely needs to be. In all these instances, the school safety plan inconvenienced the victims and not the bullies. The school district has all these policies and protections in place, not for the students, but to cover their own backs, which is backward. These are all reports from parents that I've gotten stating similar instances, and this is just 2 weeks. Sexual harassment, bullying, there's doctor reports, bruises. It's out of control, and something needs to be changed.
Those reports have been turned over to administration or?
Well, the administration has all the reports on this themselves. This is what I gathered from
Okay.
parents that told their side of the story.
Are you reading that up?
Hmm?
Are you sharing those?
Oh, yeah, you're more than welcome to look at it. I'll just need them back. Would you like them?
At some point.
Okay,
I mean, I can't do anything with them right now.
well, okay. I could try to get copies to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Joe, and I'm so sorry, I'm gonna mispronounce your last name. Is it Langeli? Sorry. Come on up, Joe.
Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Is it working? That's great.
Thank you.
I'm Joe Langeli. I'm a parent. I'm within the school district. I came to talk about a couple areas that was a concern of mine. Like the gentleman that stated before me. I work with at-risk youth, and a lot of the kids come through the system to me, and just wanted to bring up a couple things. I don't know if you guys are familiar with ORS 339-351. The Department of Education shall establish and maintain the statewide school safety and prevention system. The next ORS I would like to give you is until I picked my daughter up and a group of kids had to come to my truck rather than telling staff about kids sitting there and pinning a kid down
Joe,
and trying to do that.
Joe, I'm sorry to ask you to not give us details because we have to be the last person.
I understand.
We don't have specifics. if you could refrain from that, that would be great.
Okay, that's fine. But the thing that was bothersome is that the letter that went out to the parents had stated that it was an impulsive act rather than a premeditated attack on this kid. We continue to have this happen where even my daughter has had it happen, where she's been harassed inside the school system and I've had to come in. This has been an ongoing thing, and I don't know if that's just because that this is such a close-knit like school system or city, but this happened back in 2019 where a group of kids did this at Cottage Grove High School and nothing was done. That young man then ended up in my facility for mental health. So my question is when is this gonna be enough? We have this sign up there that says children come first, but when are they becoming first? It seems like they've been last a lot of the time. And then I see my kids not feeling safe when they are straight A students. They bust their tail in school and they're scared to go to school, and they actually quit school programs because they don't feel safe in their own privacy. It is our responsibility under Oregon statutes to sit there and trust that you guys protect our kids when we sign off on them by dropping them off to school every morning. And they're not safe. They haven't been safe in a while. The drug use at campus has gone up drastically. I see this every day. Every day I work with Otis, and every day I sit there and have a new kid come in who's struggling from drug addiction, alcohol addiction, or assaults every day, and nothing is being done. It has been an ongoing thing for years now, and it's only getting worse. We're seeing 1 in 4 kids that are now on drug addiction, and nothing is being done. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Joe. And next is Bonnie Sano.
My name is Bonnie Sano, and I do reside in the South Lane School District. I apologize for going over 3 minutes, the 3-minute allotted time last month to speak to the school board. It's difficult sometimes to condense thoughts down to 3 minutes. Perhaps the public address time should be extended to 5 minutes. It has bothered me for some time that words are used to convey values or meanings by the school board, which are very different than the traditional values or meanings. The school district slogan of diversity, equity, and inclusion is a prime example. Diversity seems to now refer to values and personal lifestyle rather than ethnicity or culture. Equity does not mean equality. Then there is inclusion. Who exactly is being included and who is being excluded? You asked for a copy of what I was saying last month. And so I've given a copy to Tanya, although I doubt that most of you really want to see it. During this school year, there have been at least 3 major grievances that you have been addressed with. I think that the staff financial irregularities have been the first one that you have publicly acknowledged and dealt with in one of these meetings. I applaud you for acknowledging and trying to correct and communicate with the staff. However, by that time, most of the staff who were complaining had left. The other 2 grievances involve specific individuals and values, so they were dealt with simply by majority vote of the board. But these grievances widely affect the community. Many people feel intimidated to speak in public, even though they may feel strongly about a subject, even to the point of removing their students. Others just complain among themselves or anonymously on social media. You really need to represent the school district when you vote on something, not try to make the outcome what you wanted in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And now we have administrative reports and this, oh, I'm so sorry.
When are we going to address the concern of this happening?
When are we going to address those concerns? And we've heard it, not just from these two gentlemen for years. So what is the district's plan and when do we want to discuss this?
Well.
Okay, that's, I just want to make sure we didn't,
Yeah, nor have we swept anything.
No, I know. What, over, not under.
Okay. So we've spent a lot of time over the past couple weeks taking a look at this, and I appreciate Joe and Ben courageously saying what their experiences are. It's interesting. I've spent a lot of time doing middle school discipline, and it's a complicated beast sometimes. It's a complicated matter because you have to deal with wading through truths, perceptions, and other things that happen. The bottom line is we need to make sure the schools are safe for our kids, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. We're doing a lot of things at Lincoln Middle School and all of our schools to help students be safe. However, if there are students or parents that don't feel like their kids are safe, we have more work to do. And so through the issues that we were dealing with over the last couple of weeks, I and Mr. Smith worked closely with Lincoln Middle School staff to monitor what they were doing. And I can assure you that something was done at every step of the way. We cooperated with law enforcement. And I'm not going to go, just like was said to Joe, and I'm not going to go into details in either of those two incidences, but we followed our procedures and did what we needed to do to keep kids safe. We do, excuse me.
Procedures aren't working.
Point of order. I would be happy to have the Lincoln Middle School behavior team come and talk about what they're doing. I think that it would shed some light on some things that we do have in place, but we're not going to talk about individual situations. You can say that nothing is being done. The problem with that is I will never tell a parent of another student what happens with a particular student. And if a parent of student A knows what happened to student B, that's not okay, because at least by us, because we're required to keep that private. And that doesn't feel good to parents. I get that. I've been a parent in a situation like that where I didn't get to know what was happening as a consequence for the other kid that was involved, and that doesn't feel good. But that is the law. We can't share consequences. When it comes to supervision, we have a supervision schedule that I've not only seen the schedule, but seen the supervision in hallways. We do have supervised hallways. I can tell you and show you where they stand. I've witnessed that. I'm not trying to make excuses. What I'm trying to do is point out that there's a couple different sides to this. I have no problem working with Mr. Becken at the middle school to make sure that we're taking a close look. The reason I was asking you for those reports is because if there's a natural order of things, when a parent has a concern, we expect them to go to the principal. If they don't get there, or administrator. If they don't get their issue resolved, they're welcome to come to the district administrator that's over that school and have a closer look at it. I know that if there's more than a couple of issues that Mr. Robbins has, that hasn't been done, which is okay. But that's why I want to see a copy of them, because if there's more things that we need to look into to make sure kids are safe, we want to do that. I want to go over that list with Mr. Becken and talk about what we see there. Because again, not try, like, let's take this head on. If there's a concern, we'll look at the concern and we'll do what we need to do to remedy the situation. So that's what I have to say with regards to the discipline issues at the middle school. Like I said, I can't go into specifics to those situations.
Budget meeting.
Yeah.
I would have to ask leadership if we could not have the group from Lincoln come to that meeting instead of waiting a whole month. Because I think we need to know what's going on and what is in place.
Well, I can check in with them. I
Okay.
mean, putting together a presentation just
Yeah.
this week for you. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
something that we can do, but we can look at it.
I just think we need. to-
But we don't have something scheduled for, like, next Monday is Budget 101.
Right, right.
So it'd have to be in addition to
Yeah,
Budget
that's
101.
I mean, is that okay, guys? I mean,
That's okay with me.
I
Okay,
think this is really important.
as do I,
Yeah, oh, I know that. I know that.
as do I. So I will look into that and I'll communicate out to the board in the next couple of
Thank
days,
you,
okay?
Brian.
I'm gonna move on. I just want to point out that we're not taking questions right now.
You
And
mentioned me, so every one of those.
Well, we're not
efforts
taking-
is in the school's
we're,
computers.
we're not taking questions as a part of my report. I'm not gonna have a question on the report unless it's by a board member. So summer school,
Can I have order, please?
We'd like answers, please.
Yeah.
I'm-
We're gonna work on that. Thank you.
summer school planning, I'm gonna move on to that.
You're gonna work.
So
Plan it again.
Yeah, we did.
Plan- I know.
Same thing. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go on. We're preparing for summer school. We're doing a couple of different things. We have kids in transitions to schools. You guys are familiar with that. We've done that for several years. That will be at Bohemia Elementary again. We've done that in the past at Bohemia. We moved it to Harrison this past year. We also have elementary summer school that we're going to continue at Harrison Elementary. And then we'll also do our high school summer school at the high school. Another reason we're keeping kits at Bohemia is because we're inviting Lane ESD to do a summer camp with life skills students. Sherry, have you heard a little bit about that?
Well, when I talked to somebody last week, we could come.
Well,
Has that been answered?
Tony doesn't know this yet. We
Oh.
just worked it out a couple of hours ago.
Oh,
So
Good.
you know something before Tony. So if you'd like to text him, you can.
he's excited about coming to Cottage Grove.
We already had him coming to Cottage
Yeah.
Grove, but we didn't have the locations figured out yet, but we do now. So,
It's gonna be a great program.
so they'll be
Good,
at Harrison Elementary in July and August.
Good, thank you, Brian.
So, we've just posted for summer school positions, and so we'll be hiring for those in the next couple of weeks, and we have our administrators ready to go. So we're excited to get going with that. A couple of other things, you'll see the calendar here in a few minutes. We didn't get a lot of feedback on the calendar. Although if you'll notice the calendar, we were able to make several things happen that staff and parents have been asking for years. I think that's part of the reason we didn't get a lot of commentary back, is because we were able to deliver on some things that we haven't been for a while, but we'll go over that when we hit to the calendar. The last item I wanted to go over is finance and HR. I was surprised to hear from Emily's report about the 30 staff members and the percentages that she shared. I'd love to talk more. We're meeting regularly with the association, and I hadn't heard about that when we met a couple of days ago. I would have liked to have heard more about that at that time when we were discussing all of these issues. But I want to let you know that we are expecting staff to use the Google form, an online form, to let us know of any issues, and we have very few issues currently that we're working on. The great majority of the issues, both past issues that staff rightfully brought up at the last meeting, as well as less issues that have come up in the past month, those have been resolved. There are a handful of issues that are more complex, maybe having to do with Oregon paid family medical leave, which is complicated, or some individual situations that are complicated. But we have been able to remedy the great majority of those issues. We've changed some practices and put some processes into place so that these issues don't repeat themselves. And so that's been a lot of work by our finance and HR staff. and I appreciate all the work that they've done. They've really focused on this to make sure that we could take care of all those issues, and they've done a good job. A couple of other things, just because they've come up, so I want to be specific about some things that have come up. You've heard about late payments on HRA Vivas, 403Bs, HSAs. We changed most of those to direct payments. So we're within a week, all of those payments were made this time. So that's something that I think has staying power, and that will continue to be done well. And then interest lost in 403B accounts. So folks that, we had delayed a 403B payments, interest loss will be paid by the end of April. And so there are a few people that applies to, and that will be done by the end of April.
Where's that money come from?
It comes from the district. It's a very small amount. I can share that with you after we pay it. Okay. There's still a few issues that we're still catching up on, especially transition from the old software to the new software. There's a couple of those, but we're working through those. And then the last thing is I mentioned that we're creating some new processes. We're having the representative from the Oregon Association the Oregon Association of School Business, OASBO. It's the state organization for school business offices. And they're going to come down, they're doing the meeting next week. But they're also going to come a couple of hours early and go through some of these new processes that we have to really make sure that we haven't missed anything. So we appreciate their help in all of that. Then the last thing I'll say is that we're working on the budget to make sure that's ready for you in a few weeks. So that is my report.
I wanted to ask a question. On the report, you said that you were surprised to hear the report from Emily about the numbers. I was interested in the staff that felt, it seemed like a large number of staff felt disrespected when they brought an issue to the building, and I think that's probably
that's not information that I had before I heard it 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. So
we need to focus on, because that morale, it rolls downhill right into the classroom.
Sure.
And we need to pay close attention to that. That's a large number.
Well, and we have asked for information from the association, and we met just online a few days ago. And that wasn't something that was shared at that point. I'd love to know more about that.
I trust that they'll give it to you.
Sure. I welcome it.
Are there any more questions for Brian?
Yeah, one more I wrote down here. So during public comment, we state in the statement that this is not a meeting with the public. It's a meeting held in public. And I think we understand that. Is there a process? Is there somehow we can do a meeting? We brought it up during the superintendent's report. It may not be the proper place, but a meeting, have we done a meeting with the public in the past? I know it'd have to be quite controlled to make sure that we don't violate those legal policies of discussing individuals and all that.
I don't know that. I haven't been on the board that long. So I would have to ask Tanya or Brian, who have been a lot more.
Like a town hall, something where there's two-way conversation. I think that would go a long ways to help.
I know we did a town hall maybe 6 or 7 years ago on the direction of the district and the focus at that time, but I can't remember the specifics. I wasn't involved in it, but I remember it happening. It could have been longer than 6, 7 years ago, but it's a distant memory. I don't recall.
Okay. Jerry?
Yeah.
I think
Something that we can, something we can talk about.
Sure. Yeah, we absolutely should. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for Brian? No? The business office report with Celia, please.
Alrighty, so my report is mostly about the financial statement that you should have in your packet. I'm going to talk about the page with the numbers on it, but there's also graphs that correspond to that as well. I will remind you that this report is through March. So it's anyway through March. So property taxes, actual property taxes collected through March exceed our budget by a little bit. There will be some additional property taxes collected through the remaining 3 months of the year. However, as a reminder, most of those property taxes are collected in November through January. It's when property tax statements come out and we receive payment. So we're on track there. Other sources of income include interest and other state funding. And the highlight there is we've received more interest income than we budgeted by approximately $50,000 more. This additional interest is due to changes in interest rates. We started out with rates of 1.25%, and currently they're at 5.2%. A couple years ago, they were 0.05%. So yay for us. Overall on revenues, we are on track to meet our budget through the end of this fiscal year, which is also good news. Personnel costs are within expectations to date. Although we're 75% of the way through the year, personnel cost represents 66% of budget. And because we pay the balance of contracts in June, personnel costs will catch up by the end of June. So personnel costs lag a little bit behind where we are through the year because of the June payments. And purchase services, they are a little higher than anticipated through March. Most of the difference is due to payments to third parties for SPED services. You know, we pay places like Looking Glass and Bridgeway House for services for our SPED students. I have spoken with Chad, and he is aware of these costs and has agreed that they should be where they are because of our enrollment. Students needing service. However, overall, we are on track for meeting expenditures for the end of the year. So bottom line is we're looking good. Or at least we're within budget. And that's all the information I had on the financial report. Are there any questions? I can also take questions later if you want to review the reports.
We had and they received some information that they're not going to get the money that they thought they were going to get. So we're in a freeze right now. And this had come up the week before. Are we expecting anything like this? Do you think before we work on our budget?
A freeze on which funds?
Well, it's ESD funds.
Yeah.
Our budget funds.
Yeah.
So are we expecting anything from the state that's going to be a surprise? Because as we look, I mean, you know, Portland, Salem, everybody is like pinching their belts, and yet we're saying, oh, you know.
I'm not aware of any funds that have been frozen, and I can say there are some school districts who use ESSER funds to pay for staff.
Right.
And we did not. For the large part, we didn't. There are school districts who included, when they did contract negotiations, pay raises, and they were using ESSER funds to pay the first couple of years of those, and we did not do that. So I feel that we were really smart in how we used our ESSER funds, and we focused those on what it was supposed to be one-time things and getting us through COVID. So we're not having those same issues.
So you think that's how come Portland, Salem, and those districts are having problems is from their ESSER use?
I believe that is one reason why, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have questions for Celia?
One other thing I'd like to report on is we've talked about having a FAQ or slide presentation on for staff about reading paychecks or understanding your paycheck stubs. We are working on that. I do have an intern from the high school, from Pine Grove High School, that's working through the intern project in the business office, and that intern is working on a slideshow with me, or the slide presentation. So that's been fun working and getting that done. And her comment was, wow, this is important information. So we plan to have that ready by the end of the month.
Celia.
Yep.
And now we're up for the Youth Truth Data Survey with David Basque online.
Okay, hello. So I'm going to be sharing some data on the results from our Youth Truth, our recent Youth Truth administration. I'm going to try to share my screen here and hopefully that'll work. Okay, is that coming up?
Not yet.
Still not there?
No, just you.
Okay.
You're looking good tonight.
Let me see here. We'll see if we can find something more interesting than that to look at. How about now?
Good.
Still showing? Okay. All right. So like I said, this is the Youth Truth Survey that was administered this last fall. This is our second year of administering this district, this survey district-wide. It surveys the students, the families, and the staff of the district. This shows you the participation rate. We had 2,288 respondents. Our overall participation rate was 55% from all three of the groups combined. And you can see that we had a little over 80% of students and staff respond. We had 29% of families respond. Obviously, that family rate is lower, but just to kind of give some context to that, our Youth Truth representative that works with the district said that that's actually quite a good rate when you compare it to what the norm is for other districts that use their survey. And, you know, just logistically, it's probably easier to ensure responses from students and staff because we do give them opportunities during the school day, kind of the time and the place to do that in a way that can't happen for families. But that's where our participation rate was at. I'm going to show just some information about the different kinds of items that are measured by this survey. The survey is broken into different themes, and each theme has a number of questions that go into it to give us an overall measure. And some of these themes are further broken down into different areas. So the first overarching theme is engagement. The engagement for what that's measuring is looking at, do students perceive high expectations and engagement in education? Do families feel engaged in their children's education? And they do feel able to influence decision-making? And do staff feel engaged in their work and empowered to influence their schools? Second theme is relationships, which is looking at whether students have the support and attention from their teachers that they need. Do families find relationships with school staffs to be productive, respectful, and for staff being approachable? And do staff experience positive relationships in the school setting? Culture is another theme that's measured. It's looking at whether students believe that their schools provide an orderly, respectful, and fair experience for them. Do families believe that schools foster shared goals, respect, and diversity? And do staff believe that their schools foster shared vision, respect, and effective communication? Measures belonging, which is actually just a student measure, but it's looking at, do students feel welcome at school and experience positive relationships with classmates? There's a school safety theme, which is looking at measuring whether what the perception is of safety of students on campus and perceived rules being in place to address violence at school. And finally, a theme around communication and feedback, which is looking at a measurement of the degree to which they are open and effective. There are open and effective lines of communication between school and home. So the next part I'm going to show you are some snapshots. So there's a snapshot for each level, elementary, middle, and high. And there's a lot of different pieces of information on these snapshots. So three main dimensions that you can see by looking at these tables. The first is just the numbers in the table cells. That shows you the percentage of positive responses by theme. So for example, it shows that 78% of elementary staff provided positive responses under the engagement theme. So all of the questions that were asked that measure engagement, 78% of the responses were answered in a positive manner by staff at the elementary level. So the numbers themselves show the percentage of positive responding. The table also shows a change in percentage of positive responses compared to last year's survey. So since we've administered this 2 years running, we can see changes over time. So for example, that 78% positive response rate for staff in the engagement theme was 7 percentage points lower than the results from last year, when 85% in that particular category would have responded positively to questions in this area. And then finally, the last dimension that we can see by looking at these tables is percentile bands. So that's what's indicated by the different color coding. So the red, orange, blue, and green. This indicates how our data in different areas compares to the results of other districts in Oregon that administered youth truth. So those are comparative figures. So for example, just looking in that student column, so you can see that 23% of our elementary students provided positive responses on the culture theme related questions. So that would be seem to be a low result. But if you compare that to what the norm is in other districts that take the same survey, it actually falls within the average to high average range. So that would mean that that it indicates that our elementary students, the elementary students in general, tend to respond lowly to questions on this in these questions. So our students also responded in a lower amount of positive responding, but that's keeping in the tendency of how kids statewide would respond on those kinds of questions. So as another example, 83% of South Lane students gave positive responses on the engagement theme questions. Well, this is a much higher response compared to that 23%. It actually falls in the low average range if you compared it to results from districts that took the same assessment. Okay, so some of the things that I noted on this table, the elementary snapshot, would be, seems like there was a general decline in positive responses from our students at the elementary level. Those tended to be lower this year than they were last year. I noted that there was a fairly large decline in the percentage of positive family responses related to the culture theme that went down by 10 percentage points. I noted that compared with other districts, student responses were mostly in the low to low average range, comparing us to other Oregon districts in those categories. And that compared to other districts, family responses were predominantly in the low range compared to other districts. Elementary staff responses were in the low average to high average range compared to other districts in Oregon. Okay, so this next slide is going to show you similar kinds of information, but this for the middle school level. Some things that I noted here were that there was a general decline in positive response rates on the family survey. Those went down in each of the categories that were measured. I noted that there were some large swings in some of the staff responses, with large gains in the engagement and professional development categories or themes, and a fairly large decline in the culture theme at the middle school level. And then I also noted that across all themes and raters, middle school responses place us in the low to low average range when you compare us with other Oregon districts based on middle school response data. And then the final snapshot is at the high school level. Some of the things I noted here were that there were notable increases in family survey responses. We went up in all the themes that were measured here. There was a decline in staff ratings, but I would point out that those were starting at really high levels. They're still high, but they were particularly high last year. And even though they did go down, they would still be at pretty high levels. And if you look at the percentile, it shows you that we're still looking at strong response measurements in the staff category for high school. I would note that there were low to low average student responses for students compared to other districts, and low family responses compared to other districts. All the family responses were in the low range if you compared us to Oregon on these same questions. And then I would note that there was a high average to above average response pattern for high school staff compared to other districts. Okay, so these next few slides use the same data, but kind of break it down a bit differently. So what I did on these slides is it compares all levels of respondents and puts them together into one composite measurement. So this first slide here shows for students, and it includes elementary, middle, and high school student responses. The bar at the top shows you this year's responses. The bar at the bottom shows you last year's responses. And then for each of the different colors, it's a different theme that's being measured. Some things that I would note here is that overall, students showed some overall decline, if you look at it as a whole, from last year to this year. And the most notable decrease was in the instructional methods theme. That was the main area where the scores went down some between those 2 years. For this next slide shows again family responses, and again over all 3 levels combined. For families, there was a small overall improvement year over year, with communications being the most improved theme from last year to this year. And then this slide is staff for all 3 levels combined. And on this one, there would be a small overall decline. And the most notable decline here would be under the culture theme, looking year over year. And this last slide just shows some other observations that either I had or that was shared with us by the Youth Truth representative that we work with. Brian and I met with the Youth Truth representative several weeks ago, and he went through this with us, kind of gave us some context of how our overall surveys look compared to other districts that he works with. Couple of the things that he noted and that Brian and I also noted as we were looking through it in more detail is that one thing I haven't showed you here, and there's all sorts of more detail breaking these surveys down into other areas. What we're looking at is kind of a high level summary, but it does break it into different higher levels of specificity. And one of those is looking at some of the demographics of students and families. And one of the couple of things he noted were that for our ELL students who receive ELL services, and students in our district and families of students in our district that receive special education and families that receive ELL services were notably higher. So in almost every theme, if you compared how our ELL students, ELL families, special education students, special education families responded, they were pretty consistently higher in all of those themes. And our representative said that this is actually pretty unusual, and that by far the most common trend that they see is that students and families who have these kinds of services tend to have lower ratings across the board on themes. And we saw the flip side of that. Thought that was notable. A couple other things that I point out here is that when you get down into more of the specific question by question responses that students provide, one of the things that it asks for middle and high school students is what are the biggest barriers that they have to their learning? And I have listed here what for our district was shown as the barriers that were most often identified by our students. So at the middle school level, the most commonly mentioned barrier for our students at that level is feeling depressed, anxious, or stressed. 47% of the students, of our middle school students that responded on Youth Truth, noted that that was a barrier to their learning. That's relatively consistent compared to other Oregon districts where 50% of middle school students indicate that as being a barrier to learning. And the second most common barrier to learning for middle school students in our district was their health or the health of the family members was noted by 33% of our kids, also noted by 33% of middle school kids statewide. And then at the high school level, their most commonly mentioned barrier to learning was also feeling depressed, anxious, or stressed. It was mentioned by 64% of our students, which is pretty substantially higher than the statewide average, which is itself fairly high at 55% of middle school students noting that. And the second most commonly noted barrier to learning for our high school students was distractions at home and family responsibilities, which 51% of our kids mentioned compared to 41% of students at the state. So that's an overview, kind of a summary. I know Tanya will have more, we'll have these slides for you to look at in more detail. If there's any questions that I might answer now or anything that comes up later, I'm glad to try to help with any of that.
I'm curious, David, why there's no numbers for safety for middle school and high school? On this high school slide.
Let me go back to those. So it's just because on the Youth Truth, not all themes are included at all grade levels. So, or for all respondents. So everything that on these snapshots has an NA, it just means that on the Youth Truth, that's not a theme that is measured by their survey.
And that's statewide or just at our district level?
I think that's nationwide. That's just the Youth Truth survey.
What kind of questions do they ask the family and the staff about safety, about school safety on that Youth Truth?
I don't have the specific questions in front of me, although we could get that. What I have here is the kinds of what those questions are trying to measure. So the school safety, this is from Youth Truth, and they indicate that the general theme of school safety, the kinds of questions they ask are looking for those perceived safety of students on campus and the perception that rules are in place to address violence at school. So if you looked at those specific questions, they would tend to focus on those kinds of areas.
Can you go back to the high school slide?
Yeah.
I want to add something here, David. We need to look at that because that is available for middle school, and I don't know why it wasn't showing up. I know for certain that they get asked those questions, and that we should have data in there, and I don't know why that's not appearing. So let's take a look at that again.
Yeah, we can take a look at that. These slides are downloaded from Youth Truth, so I don't know if perhaps if those questions end up getting categorized in a different theme, but we can take a look at that.
Yeah, and I'm looking at, because we asked every school to take the results, because really the power of the survey is not at the district level, it's at the school level specifically. And so what we asked first of all, we looked at all this together, and then we had schools take a look at their individual results. And by schools, I mean their administrators first. And then the administrators prepared an activity with their staff to go back and say, okay, you see that safety's low here, that this is high here. Like, what are we going to do about that? What are we doing that's working? And they took a look at the things that were working and what isn't working. And so all of our schools did that activity with their staff, and are changing what they're doing based on this data. Because this is pure specific data about what we need to improve, right? And so we wouldn't be doing our job if we're not using this data to change practice. And so there also was some interesting things that we saw in this data was, I know it was at the high school, but I know it happens at other places too, that there was some questions that were similar enough for staff and for students that the perception by staff was different than the perception by students. And so they talked about that, like, hey, students perceive that you're doing this, but this is what you say you're doing. And so we had some pretty direct conversations with staff about, okay, so what are we going to do differently based on this data? And so I've talked about the data cycle before. This is specific. That's exactly what we did with this data. We gave it to our administrators by school. They took it back to their staff. Many of the schools then sent out information to families about the data as well. Not all schools did that, but I think most schools did. And we're doing something about the data. I think it would be good. Like, I know you can talk to Lincoln hopefully this next week. If not, I believe we have another board meeting coming up that we can make that work. But I think it might be good with all of our schools to come and present. Like, we're doing a little less of that lately, and not necessarily come and present on Youth Truth, but to include in their presentations what they're doing in response to Youth Truth, because I think that'd be really important for you to know.
Right. So if you look at that high school survey, you see 79% of staff is 79% positive for school safety. But if you go back one slide, look at the difference: 35% from staff, and with pair that with what we're hearing here and what we're hearing.
More importantly is the specific questions we looked at, and that's what they looked at.
Right.
Because that gives you specific data. I mean, it just gives you more information about that so that you can focus and do stuff.
Right. So what this board needs is this board needs the breakdown of which schools are bringing, I'm assuming it's not 35% across the board, like you're saying, it's, we have the data, school by school. We as a board need to see that data school by school, because you may have one school, i.e. Lincoln, dragging the other schools down. Per se, it could be that way. It could be high at one school and lower at the other school, and it's averaged out, right?
We only have one.
Right, but it with the high school, but all the numbers, elementary school, we should see the data by school. We should get the breakdown. We should know what's going on at every school here at the board meeting. But we also, this board needs the data, if that's true, that the middle school survey does include questions about school safety. I want that data. So, thank you.
So we do have middle school students at London.
We do.
Are they included in this?
They're included in the elementary survey. So in order to, and that's the way the survey.
Okay. Okay. This is pretty alarming for safety.
Yeah, we need the family data at 18%, and we need to hear from this, we've heard from the staff. We've heard from families, parents, grandparents here at these meetings. We haven't heard from the students, and this data would be the start of that. Help us, data driven, right? We're data driven.
I told you before, we're looking at it and doing something.
David, thank you.
Bet, thank you.
And Brian, we're going to move on to the draft school calendar.
Okay, as I mentioned before, we put it out to staff a couple of weeks ago and didn't get a lot of responses. This calendar represents a change this semester. And so you'll see some differences on there. I'll point out a couple of different things. So there is a grading day at the end of every semester, and a half day grading / planning day halfway through each semester. So that's the difference. When we had trimesters, there was a grading day at the end of every trimester. And so we still have 3 grading days in the contract, and so we had to do something to make that work. And so we took that 3rd grading day and split it in half and put it in the middle of each of these. What we did with that as well is made that half day grading day 2 weeks, approximately 2 weeks before conferences, which we changed as well. So conferences are in November and in April. Spreading those out a little bit and making those at times that are following a grading day. What we're asking schools to do is figure out what they can, what information they can get out to parents, whether it's at the middle school and high school, that would be a progress report. But what can we get out at the elementary school to help parents know what to ask at conferences and what kind of things they might want to address at conferences? And so we work with staff on that on a school by school basis. And then you can see conferences, like I said, are in April and April and November. And that provides days, no school days on November 27th, which is right before Thanksgiving, and in April, which is something that staff and families have been asking for. So that was nice to be able to make that work. And other than that, it's a fairly normal schedule. We're starting at the same time we normally start and ending around the same time that we end. So this is something that will need your action. Do you have any questions?
So we haven't heard from the staff, but it's okay to assume that they're okay with it.
What was that?
You have not heard from staff.
We heard just a couple of responses, and a couple were positive and a couple asked some questions, but
Okay.
there was no major concern about the
Because if it
change.
was, you would have heard from them.
We gave them the
Yeah.
opportunity, yeah.
Okay.
Are there any more questions for Brian about the schedule?
I make a motion that we approve the calendar for the school year.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And who, Brian, are you going to adjust the school board meeting schedule? Or it's just a proposed, okay.
Look at that.
So on the back of the, you guys got it all.
This year. Yeah, most of the time it's on, yeah, first and third. Or fourth.
Aspirational. We hope that it is.
Right.
Well, what I noticed is we only had 4 work sessions. And I don't think that's enough for us to keep in contact with the district to know what's going on. I would like to see more presentations from the school. I'd like to see some student participation. And 4 work sessions for us, I don't think does it.
I agree with Sherry, and I think we need to talk about the executive sessions that Vince mentioned with the superintendent that we should have.
So when you're saying 4 work sessions, county's counting more, how many more?
Oh, 6. Well, the first one is for a retreat, which I wouldn't call that a work session.
Okay.
I see one on August, September 23rd, October 21st.
So the first 2 you're not counting.
I'm not counting the first one because that's our retreat. Not that we go anyplace, we stay right here.
Yeah, I know. It's not a
Our-
retreat.
It's yeah, our
It's a long meeting.
engagement. Yeah, so anyway, we have one in September, we have one in October, we have one in January, and we have one in February 26th. Work sessions.
And I'm guessing the executive session in March is for superintendent
That's not a work session.
evaluation. No, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm trying to clarify
Yeah.
the executive session and why it was, why it's not a work session. So that's the case for that one.
I just feel like, as a long-time board member, I feel like we're being left behind on what's occurring in our school district. We're not being, and I think we need to know more about programs. We need to know more about behavior. And we can't do that in a meeting like this. We need a work session to do that. And I don't even think we had 4 this year because didn't we cancel a couple or something? So
So what if you, in that really?
that's
long-
me though. Let's hear from the rest of the board because that's right.
What if we could long meeting of moderate retreat in August? Like.
To set those up.
Or if you want.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what we'll be doing on our board goal.
okay.
And I think it's a great suggestion, Sherry, and I agree with you. I'd like to hear more from the schools in the district about what's going on.
So what I'm hearing is in our board development meeting in August, that we would set up what our expectations and what we would like to hear from the district. Is that what we're saying? And how many? Okay, that's okay, right?
And then we can set.
Yes.
that up. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier today, we have to do more.
Who? You might have to wear a name tag. Anyway, that's what I have to say about our calendar.
Thank you, Sherry.
Does that mean after? No,
And so moving on to the policy report. And we have a policy that is up for first read this evening, policy JBA/GBN. And everybody got that. And are there any questions to give to the district for clarification? Or questions about anything about the policy that we want to know more about before we vote on it at our next meeting?
I was curious what drove it. I think I know the answer is to take the issues, whatever may rise, and take it, we could talk about this and take it.
No, This came up because it was a policy that hadn't been passed yet and we needed to pass it.
Yeah, this is just kind of in the normal course of the policy review cycle.
Correct.
This one hadn't been accepted, and so now we're bringing it up. There was no, correct me. There was no other reason for this particular policy to come up other than it's just normal review.
Right, for the ARs, and then this policy, the JVA/GVN, we were taking off the principals.
Right, that's what I'm
and
talking
adding-
about,
Yes,
is to try to direct the complaints to one
correct,
person, so for accountability.
right.
Because it's right, the way it's written is it's.
Well, yeah, and it
nine
had
different people.
Yeah, and it had names of staff members in a policy, which is not really heard of.
Right.
Because they change so often, you have to be changing that policy so often. So that's why we took those.
That's
out.
what I thought, and so
Yeah.
I would support that.
Yeah.
Thank you. It makes sense.
I'd never seen that before, to have like principals' names in a policy. I was like, wait a minute.
Well, that brings, then that attracts discussion about a individual.
Yeah.
And so by having it go to a main administrator, one person, that it reduces that.
So Taylor, do you have any call outs for the policy? Because this is usually one of your experts,
Right.
areas of expertise.
Yeah, thank you. And no, I didn't see anything that I thought needed correcting or that I had questions about.
Thank you. So now we're into the business section and math curriculum adoption with Jeremy Smith.
Hello, is that working all right, Jesse? Okay. Just going to share my screen here. Oh, goodness. Let me get to the first slide and not the last slide of my presentation. Right. So last month I shared briefly on some math curriculum updates and said that next month I would come and probably not be so brief. So I apologize in advance. There's a little more information here. I did try to condense it to include all the critical components of the process that we went through for our math curriculum adoption. At the end, this is an action item, so we'll be asking you to formally adopt the programs that we've recommended through our program, or excuse me, through our committee. So this is an overview of the process, and then I'll walk through each step of this again, just to give you little snippets. If there's more information you want on any of these pieces, please let me know. That is available. I unfortunately have a tab on my computer with about 50 different documents up, and they're all related to math adoption, and that's not even all the ones I have. So can give you more if you need it. So overview of the process, we wanted to start by looking at what is research, what does the research and best practices show that we should be doing in terms of math instruction, always new information out there. Based on that, develop our vision. What direction do we want to go with our math instruction with students so that that can guide us for picking the right program to get there. Before we go to pick the program, we want to decide what are the components that we're going to look at in there, and then review the program with what we call a rubric that we developed. And then we want to try them out. So we don't have time to try out all of them, but we picked a few at each level to do that with, and to get survey feedback from staff and students. We also have meetings with publishers, communications with publishers as necessary along the way to make sure we get clarification on all the steps. And then we stop and analyze all the data and determine, okay, based on all of our experience and what we've looked at, what are our best recommendations? So just to give you an overview, these are the committee members. We actually started over a year ago looking at some of those research and best practices. So this has been a long process. As you can see, there's a variety of grade levels. We have representation from special ed department, ELD department, and also varying positions from teachers to principals to district office. When we looked at research and best practices, we actually got a little support from Lane ESD. They have a few math specialists that came in and talked about some recent work that was done at the state level called the Oregon Math Project, which included teachers and administrators from across Oregon. And they categorized meaningful math in 4 different areas: focus, engagement, pathways, belonging. So we actually did like some sample lessons of what it would look like to improve in our instruction in these different areas, thinking about different ways that we plan, materials that we put in front of kids, little situations are little examples where we're starting with the conceptual rather than the application part. So starting with an example of a real life thing that students might engage with, and then moving to, well, where's the math in that? Rather than starting with the math and saying, hey, here's the numbers and the symbols, which sometimes can kids say, you know, I'm not good at math, or I don't like math, and that can turn them off right away. So let's start with something that is going to connect them to their life, and then show where the math is in that, make it more relevant and authentic. Which are one thing it didn't include in here was a shift in standards that's happened over the last few years in Oregon, and that is the big shift. It's moving more towards relevant and authentic and meaningful context for students when they're doing their math. Another analogy that we talked about is, what does math do in our system? So currently in our system, if you look at K through 12, what math does is it kind of serves as a filter. Some kids make it through, some kids are able to get it. Some kids have the support, some kids have the extra time to be able to do the work and be more accomplished in it. And then that results in less students at the end of our system being able to either, number one, be successful in math or move on to more advanced levels. So there's also been some changes at the high school level in terms of the way that math is laid out that will help even that out a little bit. But what we talked about is we really want math to be a pump. We want all students to be moving in the same direction and all students to be having those equal opportunities at the end of their career. So based off of that research, best practices, those concepts, we developed our instructional vision for math. So I know you can read, but I'm going to read this to you because we put a lot of thought and time into it. And says, through explicit and consistent instruction, all South Lane students will be able to read, write, speak, and comprehend with confidence. I apologize. This is our instructional vision for language arts. And it does say for math, and then I put the wrong one in there. So I'm gonna, when I'm done with my presentation, I will go and find the math one, and I will read that to you. But it is, it does follow a similar pattern to this. So I apologize, I put the wrong statement on there. I'll get you the right one. So based on not the instructional vision for language arts, but based on the actual instructional vision for math, we said, okay, what do we want in a program? And then we developed a rubric. So if you were here last year, I talked about this with language arts as well. The state does all this as well. So they have a rubric that they create. They look at all the programs and say, hey, here's a bunch of programs that you could choose from. These are the ones that we recommend on a state level. We do an extra layer on our end, and then we match it up with Oregon Department of Education's rubric and see where are the areas that are important to us that aren't seen in their rubric, and then we make sure to add them to ours in detail. So this lists the themes on the right-hand side here. I don't expect you to be able to read all that, but you can see in the headings some of those themes. So as I mentioned, relevant and authentic applications was a big thing that's changing in the standards, so we wanted to look at that. Accessibility and belonging, how connected are kids going to be to this, and how can they access it given the different factors that they're dealing with. Flexible and accurate strategies, so that's more on the instruction side. Sense making, that is more about taking the math and turning it into real life situations. And then a few more here. Student collaboration and discourse, what we found over the years is that if students are not talking about the math and working through it and processing it, then they're not going to be able to understand it on a conceptual level as well. Assessment, how do we know if kids are doing well? Multimodal features, so that's just the different accessibility again, and pacing and teacher guidance. So how is that laid out in the program? So from there, we had our rubric. We had a set of materials or sets of materials at Lane ESD to preview. So we went there, we used our rubric to look at that. And basically, we took all of those themes and we said, hey, what does this program do well in these areas? And what does this program need to grow on in these areas? So found the strengths and weaknesses of each program. And then we quantified it. So for each program, we gave a 1 to 5 rating of, hey, think this would be great, think this would be not great, or somewhere in the middle. And then based off of that, we determined what are the programs that we want to move forward with. And by move forward, what I mean is what are our finalists so that we can move on to that pilot phase. So I have them listed here. And you can see there were 2 at the elementary level, 2 at the high school level, and then 3 at the middle school level. I did note there that there are 2 of them that were not on the state approved adoption list. That is very legitimate that you would look at programs that aren't on the list. What it means is if you're going to adopt those programs, you just have to make sure that you've gone through enough steps and you've answered all the questions that ODE hasn't already answered for you. As I mentioned, as you can see with our rubric and the steps that we've gone through, we've been very thorough with that. And that will come up because there will be some of these programs that you'll see at the end in terms of our recommendations. So based on that, we moved forward with our pilot. At the elementary level, we had 7 classrooms that participated. Secondary is actually a little easier because you have departments, a math department at the middle school level and the high school level. So we had 10 teachers and 6 teachers respectively at middle and high school engaging. That's just teachers. That doesn't necessarily mean classrooms. So some teachers have more than one classroom that was engaging in it. And then we had training from each company. So basically a mini training, mini professional development on how to use the program, how it's laid out. There's a lot of digital components to these as well. And every program has different terms and different ways of logging in and different things to maneuver. So it can get a little bit harried, but made sure that we had clarity with our teachers before we move forward. Did at least 4 weeks with each program. That was the minimum. And that happened more at the elementary level. At the middle and high, there were a little bit longer pilots. And then we got student and teacher feedback, and give you that information summarized here. So we wanted input from multiple areas, so from staff and students. So starting with staff, we asked them after they were done, did a survey and asked a lot of questions around, how easy was this to use? Was it organized? Does it align with our standards, not only in Oregon, but we've also over the last few years created essential or more streamlined standards for our district, K through 12. So we said, do they align with our district standards? And then assessment, ease of use, information that it gives you, can that inform your instruction moving forward? When we put this into a summary, and this is for all 3 levels put together, we had over 30 pages of data to scroll through and look at. And I'm going to give you some examples here. So some were open-ended questions where the teachers could just respond of, strengths or weaknesses or ease of use or organization, that sort of thing. So these are a couple of the comments that teachers shared. They're from varying levels. Program is accessible to all learners, many entry points. Students are able to work together at their group's pace. So just talking about, oh, kids are engaged with this. They seem like they're moving along with it. Somebody noted on a different program, the online application is terrible and needs to be more user-friendly. I would access things and I was unable to return and find them again. Again, that's information that we want teachers to be really quickly able to access these things. So that was a negative for that particular program. Another comment, strong connection to real-life math examples. Students are highly engaged, number of routines, curious activities. Again, those are a couple of those themes that we were looking for in terms of shifts and wanting to see students be engaged. So there was open-ended questions. There were also survey kind of Likert scale questions where we could put the responses into a graph. So this just happens to be an elementary example. The question is, or the prompt is, the program promoted student collaboration and discourse. So you can see when we look at the results between the 2 programs here, it's a 1 through 5 scale. And on one of them, every single respondent said, oh, this is a level 5. Like I would give this the highest rating possible for this one. Where on the other one, it was more spread out, a little bit more towards some towards the high, but more towards the middle in totality. So it gives us a little bit more ease in terms of comparing 2 programs. So looked at both the qualitative and the quantitative there. And then with students, these are not pretend made up numbers, I promise you. We had a lot of data to go through. So at elementary, we had 114 different survey responses. At the middle school, we had 617 student responses to go through. Some of those were open-ended. So we were literally reading through every single comment that kids made on 617 different surveys. So we did a lot of highlighting, color coding, grouping together in different themes. At the high school, we had 208 responses. Here's some of the questions we asked. With students, we try to make it straightforward, but also giving an opportunity to provide some clarity for us. So what makes the learning in this program easy? What makes it hard? What did you like or not like about it? Is the program fun or interesting? And then one we added this year that we didn't have with the ELA is this program makes me think math is blank. And it really gives you an insight into the student experience and how they're engaging with the material. Does this make me think, I'll give you a couple examples here. So this program makes me think math is fun to do. I loved number corners, so maybe pointing out some specific things. The middle one says un poco faciles, which means a little bit easy. So we did actually translate this. So some students did respond in Spanish, so we were able to get their responses as well. I really like that one at the top. Math is stupid because it's hard. It jumped out at you too. Yeah. It's great. Students are very honest and they'll tell you what they think. And so, yeah, there were a number of ones that jumped out at us like this. And then the last one, program makes me think math is something you need to learn. Like that was a meaningful one to us as well, because we thought, oh, wow, like this is really making this student see the relevancy of math and that this could become something important later in their life. My time up.
Yeah.
I'll talk faster, sorry.
What level was that? You think?
Um,
Was that a high school or was
I
that?
could go
middle school?
back to learn.
It'd be
Yeah.
great if it was elementary school and so, and they said something like that, that would.
I'll have to search my documents to find out through the 617.
Yeah, right.
responses, but yeah, I can find it quick. Also with the student one, we gave some, again, Likert scale or rating on a, agree, disagree scale. So again, you don't need to read the language. It was less than half of the students had positive responses, like agreeing with it. In the middle, it was about half, and then on the right-hand side, it was a little more than half. So again, those charts, when we look at those, gives us a little bit better chance to compare one program to the other and those notes. We also opened up to get opportunity from parents and community. So we had a couple weeks where all the materials were set up in the training room. There was open sessions in the early evening for people to be able to come and just drop in. There were also during the day opportunities by appointment, so that we could get people to also fill and give responses that way. So we had staff, we had students, we had parents and community. From there, we needed to analyze the data and choose. And as you can see, there was a lot of data to analyze. So we had a protocol to go through. We looked at all the way back to last year and over the summer. What was the content that we looked at before we tried the program? So those themes, our ratings on those themes, those were 1 through 4. And then we also looked at the after. So these were the graphs I just showed you. After we did the pilot with students, after we did it with teachers, what were their responses? What was the feedback on that? And then we asked what else. And so this was just open-ended. These are comments from before, but there were other comments that teachers made of, hey, this, you didn't ask me about this, but here's something that's important to know about this program. When I engaged, this happened, or when I did this with my students, here was their experience. So just to be able to get the whole picture. And then we put all that into one document. So this is my elementary example. I was going to try to do a screenshot, but it was too much on the document. So I apologize. This is the one you got to go into. Essentially, here's the first program, Bridges. Here's the second program, Reveal. And we listed pros and cons. So this was before we used it. So we went through all those themes and we summarized what were the pros and cons for each program. And then we did that with the data from after we used it. So there was the teacher survey and all the questions on the teacher survey. Then we had the student survey and all the responses on the student survey. So we summarized those. And then we had the questions of the summary of the graphs and the open-ended questions. So this kind of documents all of the data put together into one more concise place. So based off that, we had our meeting with all our teachers. We said, hey, what's all the data? What does the information say? And then we had an opportunity at the end for people to advocate, like stand up and just say, hey, I really like this program for this reason. Here's why I think it would be best for our kids and for our district, or here's why I don't like that program. And then they did a vote. And the vote wasn't, do you choose program A or choose program B? It was with program A, what's your comfort level if we adopted that at our district? And with program B, what would your comfort level be? Because we didn't want to say it was like necessarily one against the other. We wanted consensus, and that actually panned out at every single level. When you looked at the results, there really wasn't a question of what the decision was. So we got that consensus at every level, and we have these recommendations. So at the elementary level, the recommendation is Bridges 3rd edition. At the middle school level, it's Carnegie Learning, and at the high school level, mathematics. Our next steps in this process, we need to do a purchase, and that is upon your approval. So I've actually been working for the last month with these curriculum providers, the companies, to get quotes to figure out what the numbers would be, given teachers and students and all the different components, and have those available and ready to go. We haven't started on anything because it's not official until you do the approval. But just know that that is very detailed work. Like I said, there's print and digital materials. You have to figure out professional development, not just what you're going to pay for, but then when is that going to happen? There's a lot of logistics around shipping. We might be renting a U-Haul and going up to Salem to pick up some materials because it's going to save us some money in the long run. And then we also need to move forward with staff training. Our goal in all of this and the timeline when we created at the very beginning was that we do not train staff for the first time August in service week, because the very next week they have to have students. And that should not be the first time that they see these materials and get provided information on them. So we're looking to do at least something in June, maybe do like a refresher that week back in August, so that we can start in the fall with their new programs. The professional development does provide an overview of the programs, allows for observations of lessons, and provides ongoing support into the year, because there's always like questions that come up 3 months after using something. You have a lot more questions than before you started using it. So we'll allow that opportunity for teachers to ask those.
Right, let's get this going. I make a motion to adopt or accept and approve the all three master plans.
And those would be the three, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of well.
Any other, are there discussions? Yeah.
So I have a lot of questions, Jeremy. You're easy to listen to. I know you're engaged in this. I mean, you're just so happy to get going with it. I know you're a math guy. I'm a math guy. I have a lot of questions. You know, we should be concerned about cost and all that. When was the last time we purchased? Because we have to do this every 7 years.
Yep.
I don't even know those numbers, but I trust that I see that you put a lot of input into it. So I feel absolutely 100% comfortable making motion to marriages or something we have to do at some point. So why not get going now?
Yep.
Okay, so are there any other questions? So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? No, so the motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Jeremy,
Thank
for all the hard work.
Thank you.
And so the next item up for our business section is the superintendent evaluation summary. And that should be in your paperwork. And so we worked on this as a group, and everyone was together when the summary was created. And so do I have a motion to accept?
I'm not willing to vote on this tonight because generally we talk to the superintendent before we do this about the results. We've not done that. And so until we do that, I'm not willing to vote on this.
Pauline Taylor's got his hand up.
Oh, Taylor?
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to the questions that came up as we were going through this process. The two major ones were the inclusion of standards in the next go around on the superintendent evaluation. And then board members had asked about the possibility of separating the vote on the evaluation and the vote to renew the contract, because the contract language was changed a couple of years ago so that it automatically renews the 3-year contract every year once the evaluation is accepted. And so I spoke to Dr. Curtis about those, and she is open to making both of those changes. Adding standards into the evaluation process was not really a question at all. And then the automatic rollover, since that would be a change to contract language, she said she's open to that discussion, but she would probably have her attorney there, and we would probably want to have ours as well. So those were the two issues that board members had brought up before, and I just wanted to give you those updates. Also, I want to toss out that personally, I thought the process went pretty well with Vince in the executive session, and suggest that we might want to use him for the complete evaluation cycle next year, and just toss that out to members for their consideration.
So with Taylor's comment and Sherry's comment, I've researched this quite a bit. And so it's my understanding that the evaluation and the contract are two separate things. The evaluation is summarized here in front of us, and it would be read and we would vote on it. And we could vote yes or no. And that has no bearing on the future of the contract. In all the research I've done, this is a rolling 3-year contract, and it would need a resolution of the board to not renew the contract for another year, which it was confusing at first, but I think I have a better understanding after talking to OSBA and some folks that understand rolling contracts, that with a resolution to not renew the contract, Dr. Curtis would be our superintendent through the end of the school year of 2026, is my understanding. And then she no longer would be. Without a resolution from the board, without any action, whether or not this evaluation summary passes or fails, without any action by the board, by June 30th, her contract would then automatically renew and be good until June 30th of 2027, except for mutual agreement cancellation between the two parties, the board and the superintendent, or for cause. And so that's what I've learned. So I'm prepared personally to vote on the evaluation summary. So that's what I've learned. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
I think that's correct.
I want to make sure that every board member understands that before we decide to not do something tonight. I think somebody can make a resolution, or I think we could put this summary off forever, and we would still have a superintendent through 2027 until something changes. So
The summary, the superintendent evaluation summary is just a summarization of the goals. It's just a document of the goals this year.
But generally, always, we have met with her after we do this and we talk about it, and we've not done that.
It's only if you have questions.
We might have questions. We have a lot of questions. In our executive
You
session.
stated in the executive session and need to rate you in the executive session. So that she has questions or wants clarification on that she can have that meeting.
We've always have had a meeting.
I personally believe that through seeing what's happening on social media, what's happening in the newspaper reports and at these board meetings, that there are a lot of people upset with things that are going on in the school district. And I can't believe that any one party that's involved cannot see that. And I would personally, well, I don't know how far I can go with this, but I would think that all parties would be absolutely calling for a meeting like urgent before any negative action could be taken on. Let's just stick it out there. If I was the superintendent and I heard some of these things going on, I would absolutely be here. And I know that Dr. Curtis has some family issues going on, but she has been with us a couple times online, and I would expect her to, if she's at all concerned, to let us know that. And so Taylor, you at the last meeting, I think we asked for you to reach out, and it sounds like you did. Is there anything that she asked you to bring to us today? Because we could make a decision today to do something that could be positive or negative.
I mean, really what she said was what I told you. I mostly asked her the two questions and a little bit about, how you're doing and what's your situation right now, more personal, casual stuff. But as to the two questions I was asked to ask her, both the answers I got were yes. She didn't give me anything else in particular to bring to you. I think she's pretty much focused on her family stuff right now, and I didn't feel like it would be appropriate to push any further into that at this time.
So
that's all I had. Did you have was there a piece of your question that I didn't answer?
No, I have a career, and as most of us do, and I know that family things happen, and sometimes they get in the way, sometimes your employment gets in the way, but at the end of the day, both of them are important, and not hearing anything concerns me, and I don't want to, I don't think that I don't think that would be fair for me to, or anybody here to make a resolution that could change something so drastically if a party is very interested in discussing the future. For example, if somebody made you catch my drift?
Yeah, which tonight we're only voting on the evaluation of technical goals.
Right, but that would not prevent somebody from making a resolution, popping up and make a
Because
resolution.
Does not the contract say if we approve this, it rolls over?
No. This is only the evaluation.
So what would be the process for a board member? I'm a new board member, and that's gonna run out real. I wasn't party to any decisions, but I'm still fairly new. As Colleen stated, she's fairly new earlier. It didn't slap her. And I'm learning, and that excuse is gonna run out real fast. I'm not gonna be able to use that very much longer. And so my question is, can't I just during a meeting make a motion to do something, even if it's not on the agenda? Can't I just make a motion and get a second and then have a discussion? And if there's a vote, there's a vote?
Well, generally, we would put any kind of discussion topics on the agenda. So you would let the leadership know in advance of the meeting that sets the agenda, and then that would be on the agenda. And you would have an opportunity to then make your petition for whatever it is that you're.
But there's nothing that prevents that from happening that way. Somebody
No.
makes a motion,
No.
right. So see what I'm saying is that somebody with lack of communication, somebody can be so upset or concerned that they make a motion that can affect something negatively or positively. And so I'm concerned that I'm not hearing anything from that party. So I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it at that.
So just to clarify, are you questioning on whether you're trying to make a motion on an evaluation and you wrote?
No.
Oh,
The question,
Are you talking about the contract?
the question is the contract, yeah.
okay. Because I thought you had it in the very beginning. You clearly stated your understanding of it. Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm right. I just want to make sure. And I think I'm right. I know Brian's laughing, but I want to make sure that everybody else understands the bearing that this has on the future and the bearing that it doesn't have on the future.
You had it in the beginning.
Yes.
Like 7 minutes.
Thank you, Tony. You always keep me on track. Thank you so much.
So, to address your concern, Sherry, would you feel comfortable for approving the evaluation and scheduling a time with Yvonne when she can be here to discuss concerns about the contract?
You know, we haven't had any communication with her for over a month. I've not heard from her. I mean, I don't know what's going on with her. I don't know what's going on with her husband. We have had no communication and bothers me. Okay. What? Maybe board leadership knows what's going on, but the other 5 don't know what's going on. Do you? Do you?
That's a fair statement.
Yeah. I just,
I know,
Brian's doing a good job. I'm not, you're communicating with us.
that's what I know is Brian has taken the lead and is doing a great job. The communication is spectacular,
yeah.
unexpected, spectacular. So yeah.
Addressing issues that have never been addressed.
So with that, it's not something I expected, so I guess it makes it less of an issue, not hearing from, the superintendent in that time, but then I hear the concern and I should also share that concern that we need to know as a board, what's going on, what the future holds. It's important.
So I would just feel more, is this issue date sensitive?
That's a good question. Yes,
It was supposed to have been done,
March 31st.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
in March, and then it was put up by mutual agreement.
Mhm,
but
mhm.
I think it's time sensitive. I think you have to do one part today, and then you can.
Yeah, and I haven't. Still have the contract, which I really thought the contract said if we approve of her evaluation, it rolled over.
I don't.
No, I have it here in front of me. I can tell you, I can read it if you'd like again. I
Okay.
read it at the last meeting. I
So
can
when
read
does
it
it
again.
roll over? Why? Is that never been a separate vote?
Taylor has a point. It might help us out.
My understanding goes along with Sherry's was that we made that change a couple of years ago that with a satisfactory or above evaluation, the contract automatically rolls over. That's
what we
my
did last year. Right, Taylor, we had one vote last year. And that's
correct.
what we did. Rolled over.
So the contract I received doesn't say that. It does say that, it says that it doesn't mention anything about a evaluation summary, and it talks about the contract shall be automatically extended on July 1 of each contract year for an additional year from July 1. So that 1 year is added to the contract unless on or before June 30th of the contract ending 2024 or any contract year thereafter. The district by resolution of the board of directors and notice of the superintendent.
Well, this was adopted in 21.
Yeah,
So we
this,
must have changed it. So this probably is not the latest contract.
and if it's not, then I need a correct copy of.
Yeah,
That's what it says here.
yeah.
That's right. So that,
Because I know
I
last
believe-
year, when we voted on her evaluation, we also in that was her extension. So I think we changed the contract.
so with that brought up, that's important because that tells us now that there's some question of whether or not the vote on this evaluation summary automatically, if the language was taken out that a resolution can be made to not extend and it's automatically extended, then I would also support Sherry in putting this vote off until we can get clarification on it, because I would hate for somebody to vote on something that really that we think doesn't have any bearing, and then try to come back later and make a resolution to change something, and we can't. Well, we need to understand, the board needs to understand the language in the contract before we touch this. And I don't think it'd be a bad idea to put this off to the next meeting. It's the summary.
We're gonna meet Monday already, so.
Filling out meeting up.
That's all right. We need to do
Yeah.
district business.
State revised 419, adopted 419 and 2021, revised for the 2021 to 2024.
That's what I have.
Yeah.
And-
So it would be the most recent contract. It was adopted 419 of 2021.
Can you tell me what Article 3 says? Or let's see, is it Article 3? I think it's yeah.
As provided in section below, this agreement shall be between 3 years and include the first day of July 2023 and continue as provided. This is a 3-year continuing contract. Therefore, the contract will be automatically extended on July 1st of each contract year for an additional year from July 1st. So that 1 year is added to the contract and the full contract term is again 3 years. Unless all other before June 30th of the contract ending to 2026. Any contract year that the district resolution of its board of directors or notice of the superintendent or the superintendent has written notice of the board of directors, they must not extend the contract to one additional contract year. And so notifies the other members prior to June 30th. In that event, the contract is terminated without regard to the possibility of.
That language mirrors the one I have, except for the 3 dates. The one date that remains in effect, that changes it from 24 to 26, like I stated earlier. It changes the commencing date from July of 2021 to 2023, and it changes the date from 2024 to 2026, like we stated earlier. It mirrors it exactly. Right.
But what we're talking about is upon favorable evaluation by the school board, it automatically rolls over another year. We do not have a separate vote. We never had a separate vote last year. We had one vote and it automatically rolled over.
But because but because the board did not create a resolution, the contract automatically extended. But just for the record, just in case this, we do find something later that says that this has a bearing on the contract, which I don't think we'll find. I'm prepared to make a resolution to not extend Dr. Curtis's contract for an additional year, which means July 1 of 2026, we would have an interim superintendent if we didn't hire one first. But to be fair, I don't think I want to make that tonight. I would think I want to just put that on the record in public so that, like Taylor had mentioned, we did have some discussion. Somebody mentioned we had some discussion about this during the executive session that she wasn't privy to, so she may not know. But since this is a public meeting and she has absolutely every right to attend and might be attending now online, or somebody could share it with her, that I have that intent on making that resolution. I think it's only fair to do so at the next meeting, a following meeting, so that she can have time to reach out to the board to have a conversation. And so I'm prepared to vote on the evaluation summary tonight, but just know that if we do find something later on down the road that says that this has a bearing on the extension of the contract, then it's public record that we brought it up and we could not find nothing. We could not find anything. Is that fair?
That sounds fair.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that myself personally.
Well, then we did it wrong last year.
I don't see it in the contract.
Yeah, we did it wrong last year then. We had one vote.
Okay, so to summarize, are we ready to vote on her the evaluation? And then we would take up a conversation with Dr. Curtis at a further meeting in the future to talk about questions you have.
Before June 30th.
Before June
And I would
30th.
it takes action at one meeting, one time. It doesn't take two meetings. If it's action on one meeting, it would have to be prior to June 30th.
It just seems like that discussion would happen before this. We're missing an executive session with Yvonne, I believe.
Well, I think that we could add that into our calendar so that we can get that, because it is important, Sherry, and I don't want you to feel like we're not being heard. I think we are compelled to accept her evaluation since it is separate, and we do have the opportunity to non-renew up to June 30th. Yeah.
My concern is that we asked for somebody and nobody jumped at and make a motion to accept the evaluation summary. And that speaks volumes, that nobody just jumped up and said, hey, nobody did. And so I don't know if anybody's prepared to do that now. I don't have a problem doing it. I'm gonna abstain from doing that. I want to see if anybody else is super excited to make a motion to.
Well, I'll make the motion to accept the summary because I feel like we came to the decision together as a board. We worked through this with Vince and there were no objections to what he wrote on the summary when we had the opportunity to voice those and to enter that into the record. So I'm making a motion to accept the executive
Second.
summary.
Has Dr. Curtis seen the summary?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm comfortable voting on tonight then. The summary. not-
So I think what public needs to know is the evaluation is done strictly on her goal.
Can we,
That's all. No, we're having a discussion.
well, I just want to make sure we can talk, that we did
Yeah.
some executive session stuff, and there was some things I was not clear about. I'm trusting you,
Yeah.
Shannon. Right. I don't want to get in any trouble.
So it's just on her goals only.
Yeah.
We did a targeted survey, Last year, we talked about doing we had done a staff survey for 2 years, like in May, June. We said, okay, we need to do this staff survey before her evaluation. It did not happen for some reason. We were supposed to have done it though. So we're missing that part. And then, in my opinion, next year for her evaluation, her 4 goals aren't the only thing that she needs to be judged on or, yeah, or whatever.
Right. And
I mean, you know,
No,
we had
and-
communication, you have the problem at Lincoln, there's a whole bunch of things besides her goals that I would like us to expand on next year.
okay, and Taylor has his hand up.
And yeah, Sherry, as I said, Dr. Curtis had no objection to including standards in the next evaluation cycle. And we've talked before about how we got away from that. And I think the majority of the board would like to go back to that. I fully support it. So we will make sure that in some manner standards are included in the next evaluation.
So when I read this summary, I read that the goals that were set by the board and the superintendent in August of last year. So I was a board member then and very new board member, but I think that those goals were actually set prior to August. Can anybody confirm that? Because I don't recall having that discussion.
Well, you didn't come to the August meeting, we had to cancel it because we didn't have Joe, it was a hot day and you, so we never had that August
The
meeting.
summary here says attaining the goals set by the board and superintendent in August of last year. So we have to have this correct.
So we can make an edit on that. He and I was trying to type that as we were speaking and that was on a template. So
I just want, what are the
So-
facts? When were they in fact developed
I bel-
before the new board?
That's my understanding. No, it's a good
No, no.
question, Dwayne.
It's something Sherry and I go back and forth on. It's,
yeah,
Yeah, I believe that happened.
we have the calendar. We
Yeah.
can refer back to the calendar on that.
okay, so going back to what Sherry had said, the public needs to know a couple things here. They need to know that the evaluation was based, like Sherry said, only on those goals that were set forth by the board with different people on it. Is that a fair way to say it?
Previous board.
Previous board. And we were reminded that we could only perform this evaluation using those goals. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So like Taylor says, he would be open to having a real open conversation about current events during the evaluation summary. I support that, but the public needs to know that was not the case, or that was not the case. So they also need to know that it was, well, okay, can we talk about the ratings? Can we talk
No.
about, we can't.
Well, they're in here,
It says satisfactory.
yeah, which,
So no discussion about, okay,
that's the kind of thing you do an executive session with her.
right. I don't see anything in here that, except for the August, that needs to be corrected. Just to clarify for the public to know that this was already developed. The process was already developed, and they need to know that the current board is open to change that and to change that, because regardless of what happens with a resolution in the future before June 30th, Dr. Curtis, without releasing her for cause or a mutual agreement, if she decides to retire, or if she decides that she needs to spend more time with family or become part-time, whatever, they need to know that that she is our superintendent until 2026. Regardless of what happens with this summary, or even a resolution that might be made next week or the week after. That fair? Does everybody understand that?
Yeah.
Have to go back to the standard calendar is dated August. You know, during the week. I'll go back and do that.
The other thing that we need to discuss is the 62% response rate of the targeted survey. 62% of the surveys that were sent out to the targeted groups were returned. I don't know if we can talk about the numbers, the specific numbers, but I think we talked about it in a public, right? 70 some odd were sent out to stakeholders, which included the people that work closely, community members.
And there was, we went over this before.
Right. But something we learned at the last meeting,
Directors.
community members too?
Members,
Right.
you know, chief, there was
So
EAs, there was, all the principals, members, the board.
and that concerns me because a community member,
They should work closely. There's a lot of people that work.
Right.
closely.
right, and then and I think we're on the right track as a board as far as the future goes.
So if we vote on this, we're just voting on the summary of the evaluation. Only that, which is for goals only. We will have a discussion about the length of the contract. And then we'll have a discussion about what her evaluation will look like next year. Is that right?
If I may, just.
Yeah.
So, this usually isn't two steps like you're talking about. You do the summary of the summary of the evaluation. And then you have that negotiation meeting where you assign who's going to talk about contract and then bring that back and you vote on that separately. Or if that's the whole board's going to talk, and that's, that's that too. And then in July, very early, like that first operational meeting or executive session, that is your very, very best window for setting up the evaluation cycle so that you have the entire cycle to have it done in January, February time and have those agreements about, and that's mutual between the board and the superintendent.
Thank you, Regina. Yes. Does that, do people feel comfortable with this input? Yeah. Motion in a second.
Motion with a second.
We have a motion in a second. So, all those in favor of accepting the executive summary? I say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So the summaries, are you?
Yeah.
Opposed, okay, I'm opposed. Well, I'm sorry, I thought you were already voted.
No, I didn't.
My apologies.
Yeah.
So we have a 6-1 vote and we'll go ahead and set up a time to meet with Yvonne with us in executive session to address concerns, and then to set up her goals for the following year in the July meeting. Okay. So upcoming dates. So the next meeting is the board budget committee meeting on April 15th.
The budget 101. And then we have May 6th is a regular board meeting session, May 20th as a budget committee meeting, May 28th as a budget committee meeting if necessary, and then June 10th as the budget public hearing. And board leadership can work with Tanya and Yvonne and Brian about setting up a time with Yvonne. Yeah.
So the budget 101 is next week
Mhm.
at 5:30, usually lasts an hour or a little bit longer. Following that, I've been communicating with Bill, and I think we'll be able to do something.
that'd be
with
great.
that.
Oh, that's great.
So
Thank you.
I want to make sure that it's not just Bill because he's
No.
working on
Yeah.
that. So that's the only thing that would push that out is if his team can't be there. Bill will be there. He's already committed, but I'll keep you informed of that and let you know through time.
And at some point, I think it'd really be good to meet with the students and them. Because they are the ones that are walking the hallways and they're the ones that know what's going on.
So I think we're jumping ahead a little bit.
No, I know, I'm
You
just-
started it, so let me
Yeah.
say this, is that there are things that there are interviews that we do with students to talk about these very things. That's what Bill can talk about,
Okay,
whether
okay.
he's done any of those lately or whether it's something that he can do in the future. I can speak more to that. I know that, for example, at the high school, Holly Gentner, who's an intern, did some interviews with 17 different students about their experience at the high school and was able to use, that's what we refer to as street data. Because we have the data that tells us how many, kids are achieving this and that and the other. But if you want to know why, you have to have street data, something that
Right,
tells you
no.
the reason why. And that's what Holly did with a bunch of students, and it was really cool.
Absolutely.
And that kind of data is really important. It's subjective, but it's really important as well. So I'll make sure that we include that when we talk about LinkedIn and LinkedIn students.
I just think it's so alarming from the testimony we had tonight, but also from what David presented on safety for kids, students, and staff. I mean, that is alarming.
It is worth our focus. It has our focus, and I want to.
As a parent, when we send our kids off on that bus to school, we have to feel like they're going to be safe, and they're not feeling that. And the fact that I have an 8th grade granddaughter, we need to do something. I mean, really, we need to do something. And I know we've had a problem since my kids were in middle school, but it sounds like it's really getting to be huge now. And maybe it's the end of, I don't know. So it'd be really good to have them come.
So if you want to look at all sides of it,
Right.
I appreciate that you want to do that. I'm not trying to downplay anything.
No, I know,
that Ben or Joe or anybody says. That is really important information, and I hope they left, but I hope they give me that information.
They had a lot of passion.
No, and that's parent passion, and I
Yeah.
totally respect that.
Absolutely.
And want to know that, but you have to balance that too.
Mhm.
There's a lot of other things going on, and saying that there's a huge problem based on 2 issues isn't fair either. And so I think we do need to look at the whole picture and what's going
Yeah,
on.
we know there's more than 2 issues.
I realize that,
Yeah.
but that's what they were. looking
No, I know. Thank you, Brian.
And so now it's time for the board and the school folks to give us your, like, just a little report, like anything else that you want to shout out about. Do you guys have anything you'd like to? Not put on the spot. Okay. Please. I'm going to start with Taylor because you're online and I don't want to forget you.
All right. Thank you. I really don't have much. Had a pretty good tournament or turnout at last month's chess tournament. It's an individual tournament, not a team thing. And other than that, I'd just like to thank everybody for carrying on without me and letting me get out of town for a couple of days.
Okay. And I'm going to start over here this time. Tammy?
I don't know if I've mentioned it or not already, but the play that I saw those 2 young people in, what was it, a couple of weeks ago now? Probably a month. Anyway, it was awesome and amazing, and it made me cry and laugh and all those other things. So I know everybody all goes to all the sports things. I'm just gonna put a shout out to the theater kids. So, and the arts kids. So, we have a great thing going on all over our schools, not just in the sports stuff. So, yay theater kids. And thank you, Colleen, for jumping in.
Thank you.
Joe?
Well, I don't have very much to say either, but I do want to say thank you, Colleen, for stepping in and doing an excellent job for Taylor while he's on vacation. Did get to go to a track meet and it was decent weather. I know the kids can be a little cold at times, but
Wet.
yeah. I'm just really excited to see what goes on for the track team, the softball, baseball, all the sports.
Jerry? I'm excited to see in June, is it the CTE presentation at OSEA Park? Is that coming along pretty good?
Planning a little bit more tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think, we talked about this earlier, is that you were saying we have a lot of good programs. It's the communication. We need to get that message out, what we have, do more self-promoting, I think. For future business items, I asked for the, excuse me. For the food service report, I'd like to hear a busing report and maintenance reports. You know, so thank you for letting me be my bratty self again.
And Sherry, with regards to some finding out and sending out sometimes for you all to choose when you want to go to the high school.
Oh, good.
Schools. Program. If you don't give you a time that works for you, do the work or what have you. Tell me that. And maybe try to find a different time. We're trying to make those during the school day. And I know my kids in the way of that. There's a different time that would work specifically for young.
And I just want to thank Jeremy for his presentation at all the schools for the truth survey. I was only able to go to several, I mean, a couple, but he did a great job and knew what he was talking about. And it was so good to see staff. I mean, they were so jazzed up about their results. So but it's really positive again. Excuse me.
Defer to Jeff if you'd like to go before me before I ramble on. And I'm writing my notes here and he's like, come on, Dwayne. Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Go for
Because I'm gonna be short. Yeah, I enjoyed going to the classes with Jeremy, and we got one tomorrow as well, correct? 8:30 and oh, Wednesday, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay, it's on my calendar for.
You're tired, guys. Oh, no calendar. Can you imagine that, huh, Joe?
And it's not really board, but kind of, I've been doing scholarships for the American Legion for over 10 years. And we give out 2 scholarships, and we interviewed last Friday. And for the first time, it was the toughest one I've ever had to deal with because I wanted to give everyone a scholarship. They were so good. And you just got to get down to cut hairs when you do it and hope somebody else gives them something too.
Aren't you amazed when you listen to those students, though, those seniors? I mean, they are so mature, they so smart.
There was one that had so much energy. Then we got done. One of the guys sitting next to me goes, I need a break.
Before you go, I forgot another tweet.
Yeah.
I do. So I just wanted to give a shout out to one of my teachers, Jaden Tucker. He has had a significant amount on his plate. The yearbook is due later today. He's also still trying to teach and coach and get a main event ready for the last one of the year. So he has had a lot of his plate and he is handling it with grace.
Back from his dad.
He's taller than me anyway, so let him go first. That's crazy. So I want to thank the folks who came to speak today and they always come to speak and it's your time. It's 30 minutes, 3 minutes a person. You did hear Bonnie talk about raising it to 5. I wholeheartedly support the folks coming in. I know there were some folks that were going to come in today and probably just didn't have it in them. Like some of the speakers said, that sometimes it's not for everybody. And I want those people to know that we hear them. And definitely find a way to get your story out because it's your kids. I heard from a mother that I think was planning on speaking and probably came in here and realized it wasn't her thing. So hopefully she finds another way to get the information out because she let me know what's going on. So thank you to the people who speak. Fill that list up. That's what we're here for, to hear from you. Lions Pride, go watch that. I did that last year. My nephew took all 3. I think it was 3. He took all 3 awards. It was like he took one, he took the second one. I'm like, for sure he's not going to get this one. He got it, right? And entertaining. I missed the Tapatio thing. I think we were out of town that day. We were driving out of town that afternoon. But I hope you guys made a lot of money. And I saw the pictures online. It looked like a heck of a show. So it looked like you guys were dressed up and doing some funny stuff. Right up my alley, believe it or not. I'm looking forward to the data from David on the middle school safety that we're being told that's in there. CT, Brian hit me up this afternoon and invited me to the CT. I think that I've been an advocate for career technical education. It's what my son's doing and so far he's successful. And it's not everybody's cup of tea to go to college and or just go right into the work field. So sometimes you go journeyman stuff. We're on job training and CT will get you lined up for all that. I did want to at some point talk about facilities use fees. I had heard last year that there was an organization, a class 3 organization, which is for not a nonprofit, I guess it's for profit, who were using the high school field, and we heard a couple meetings ago how bad a shape the high school field is and how much money it's going to take to get it up to standards to make it safe, and the amount seemed outrageous, but then when you think about the wear and tear on the field for what they were doing, it kind of makes sense. But I think the fee schedule seems to be set in stone, to develop by the board, and the cost is there. And to sit here and tell an organization that they have to pay upwards of 5 times that amount for what they're going to do, it seems like we should have something set in stone. So recently I heard from a 40-year organization, a wrestling group that was under Thompson, was Bill Thompson, who were told that they would be charged 500. So they're a class 2 nonprofit. They have a small fee. Don't quote me on this, under the fee schedule, and they were told for an event that they are going to be charging people to come wrestle and also to come in and watch, where they make a couple $100, they would be charged $500. So they had the fee schedule, they challenged it, it's actually $250, it was reduced to $250, it never should have been quoted at $500. The fee schedule is the fee schedule, so we need to revisit that. I also think that it's crazy to ask a group that's been around for 40 years in this community, that's been using the facilities for what I hear is no charge, to then all of a sudden pay an amount equal to what they expect to bring in. I think we can do better than that as a board. So I'd like to bring that up in a future meeting. And then the first thing I wrote down is when are we going to take action against these concerns with violence and bullying? But I think Sherry touched on that, so I won't even go there. Let's see. I want to give it up to the classified union. And Tammy for participating. She shared with us what she could about that, and I heard Brian say before, if we had it, we'd give it to him. So I was thinking, like, we find some way to give them all $100 an hour, but I stated before, $25 an hour is what everybody should make, but minimum. But I want to give it up to the classified union. I'm going to be very careful with how I say this. Is that kudos to the union. Hurrah, I'm a union member. I'm a union leader. I kind of followed the whole process. I have attended some of their meetings before I was a school board member. Keep going forward, keep pushing forward. And how do I say this without getting in trouble?
Maybe you don't.
Yeah, if you're not happy, keep going. Yeah, maybe I don't. Stop talking. One more thing I wanted to say here. This is on a serious note. We continue to have a union officer that comes to meetings, and this has been going on since the beginning of this board's inception of all of us here, and continues to talk about or accuse a board member. It was a board member, one or more board members, and now it's been whittled down to a board member who is acting unethically. I thought I heard something today about a financial gain. And I think I don't think any of us have received any kind of anything from the ethics commission. And I've been watching the city council and see how serious they take ethics violations, and it's pretty serious. I would think that if these things were going on, that somebody would know about it. I think it's I think that the person who we're talking about should be
need to be careful about point of order.
Okay.
Talk about individual staff members.
Okay, I'm learning. So I didn't name anybody, but we do.
Yeah, but you're referring to somebody in the room, so you got.
Okay, but somebody was sitting here earlier today and stated this on public record that somebody was sitting here at this table and had said these things, right?
I'm just trying to give you a point of order.
Yeah,
that we
okay.
can't talk about.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So I would like to learn more about that. I would like to know who I think I know who they're directing that to. I think it's a disservice to not contact them or file a complaint. There's a policy, a complaint policy that not too many people know all too well, but there actually is a complaint policy to complain about a board member. And if you have these concerns, we can't just go on and on and on for months on end, continuing to come in and state that at the beginning of the union report and not do anything about it. I don't know if the intent is to try to scare this member, whoever it might be. to distract them or to scare them, a tactic, but I don't think it's appropriate, and I think if it's serious allegations, it needs to be dealt with. And that's the end of my report. That's all I have.
I don't have a whole lot to say because you guys have covered most of what I was gonna chat about. I want to thank the parents that came tonight for coming and sharing their information and their concerns so that we can make it a bigger priority, and address it here at a board meeting. And I'd also like to thank Tammy and the OSEA committee and everybody that was involved with the negotiations. Thank you so much for making that process so positive and letting those people know that we really value the work that they do in the district. And I think I want to just say that I want us all to remember, that we represent the district wherever we go. And maybe that is what the reminder is, that we remember that we do have a code of ethics that we follow, and we hold ourselves accountable to that and try to hold ourselves accountable to raise the district up and be role models for the folks that work for our kids and for our kids. And I just want to leave it at that so that we can all remember that that's something that we're supposed to be doing. So
We can't take the board hat off.
no, we can't.
Look at that hat on you.
Well, I wasn't gonna comment, but since you did share, is we all do things differently, and we're all here because we were elected to be here. We weren't hired by the school district. We were hired by the people, and so they can fire me. But I do, there's value in what you say, and you're right. But at the same time, if there is something going on, my point was we need to know the specifics. Because if somebody's continuously doing something that
Sure.
with that hat on.
And so one more thing that I would like to say is that I think that parents, when they're frustrated, they don't think about using the complaint policy that's out there. And Dwayne, you do mention it usually once a meeting, and I'm going to cover it for you tonight, KL, right? So please avail yourselves of that policy if you're feeling like there's something that's not being addressed at your school, so that it can be addressed in a really systematic way. And it's taken, those policy complaints are taken very seriously. So I just want to throw that out.
Can I touch on that real quick? I won't take a lot of time, but you mentioned it earlier when you had made a point of order. I think it was for Ben, when Ben was talking about a specific incident?
It was Joe.
Was that Joe? Joe was, and you'd stopped him, and it wasn't because you didn't want to hear it. It was because we are the last. And I tell people all the time, I said, I have to stop this now. You have to take this to the next level. I'm counting on you to do that, because if I know too much, I have to divulge that. Ethically, I have to divulge that. And if I do that, I may have to remove myself from that conversation. And I'm worthless to you. I'm worthless to you if I can't vote here. And and sometimes you can't even sit in on the meeting. I'm worthless. We're all of the elected officials are worthless to the people if you go too far. So when an elected official, I've learned this, asks you to stop, it's like when you say point of order, let's not go there. There's value in that. And we should stop and listen and consider that. So yeah, we can only hear so much, and we have to direct you to the right department so that you can handle it. And eventually, hopefully it doesn't ever get to us. Hopefully it's handled. But if it doesn't get handled, it does end up here before it goes to the next level in most cases. So there's value in that.
That's right. Thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned.